It's the 21st of June 2018. I'm Richard Taylor and I've come out this evening to go to Cambridge's North Area Committee. That's a meeting of North Cambridge's local city and county councillors. I live in North Cambridge, so they're my local city and county councillors. A key item on the agenda tonight is policing, so councillors get an opportunity to hold the police to account for their performance against the priorities that councillors set 2 meetings ago. And the councillors get to set the new local policing priorities. Clearly a key area that's been in the priorities and is a problem area is the Fen Road, Water Street area of East Chesterton. Behind me, one reason I'm over on this side of the river this evening is I think it would be more dangerous to be over there with my camera. My camera was actually taken from me on the other side of the river, just on Green End Road, not too long ago. That was a previous camera. I've had to replace it since. Anyway, the key problems are now being addressed, that we've got more policing, but it seems that the council setting the priorities wasn't the thing which really prompted action. It was a local residents meeting. And we've heard both council officers and the police say that it was that residents' meeting that really alerted them to the degree of problems that we've got across there with particularly dangerous driving and violent criminality, so often related to the use of vehicles. And I think that's really concerning. I'd like councillors to look at why them setting a priority as elected representatives of all tens of thousands of residents of North Cambridge didn't have the same impact as a relatively small meeting of 100 or so residents. So what went wrong with those communication lines is something that I'd like to raise this evening. The police have asked what are the elements that they're not capturing with the problems with Fen Road. Well, I would like to add one thing. Well, the violent crime and the criminality related to the use of vehicles is clearly the most important thing. I would add dangerous dogs to their list, and all they've got to do is look at the Cambridge News and social media to see the problems that people are having, particularly people who are commuting by bike and being worried by dogs. And something I think we need to address is the threshold for police action and the threshold for action from the council's dog warden. If the council's dog warden won't react to anything that's described as dangerous, well, where is that threshold really? All dogs are potentially dangerous. I think we need to discuss or make it clear to the public exactly what we can expect from the council and what we can expect from the police. And the council do also have powers which they could invoke. I'm not particularly keen on sort of extra powers to tackle or restrict what people can do with dogs, but that's something that maybe the council should consider. They shouldn't just say, well, we can't do anything about it. Dangerous dogs are only a matter for policing. So another item that I want to raise tonight is I think it's really important to use these kinds of meetings to raise things that sort of impacted me personally. And something that has impacted me personally has been sort of the chilling of just a dog going past there. So it's been something that's impacted me personally has been the chilling of debate in the run-up to the elections. Now, what happened was I was campaigning to try and get one of the candidates standing in East Chesterton to make a commitment to refurbish a dilapidated notice board on the Riverside Bridge. And I sent a small handful of tweets out trying to get those commitments. And the Liberal Democrats, in a very illiberal and undemocratic fashion, described what I was doing as harassment. I reacted to that by stopping any involvement in that election campaign. And I want to know whether I was right to do so. So the reason I did that is I didn't have the confidence in our policing and justice system to carry on when an accusation of harassment was being made. And I based that not particularly on anything that's happened locally, but on things that have happened elsewhere in the country where the police have acted against journalists and activists who are just behaving perfectly reasonably. I think it's absolutely reasonable to question councillors and candidates and to seek commitments publicly on Twitter in the run-up to the elections. In fact, doing so publicly on Twitter is a very mild and asynchronous, non-confrontational way of doing things. So I think what I did was absolutely right. and I would like to see the police's view. And actually, I think it would be useful to have a police priority on the preservation of effective representative democracy. And it's something I'd like to see a paragraph on in the police and crime plan as well, so that people who are engaged in proper, peaceful debate about how we run our society aren't chilled by the policing and justice system. So that's something which I hope to raise this evening. So it is a little bit of a scary thing to do, to go into a public meeting and take a camera and film, because while our MPs have all unanimously supported a law allowing filming at local government meetings like tonight's, and actually all the city councillors, when the matter came before the city council, they all unanimously supported it as well. I find at the local meeting here, often the councillors are not so encouraging and supportive, and sometimes they can be really quite unpleasant towards those reporting. And often I find that to be a little bit, they try and intimidate and bully a little bit. So it can be a very difficult situation. But I've now got almost 20 years experience of going to local meetings. So if anyone can do this evening and get some information out about how our councillors are behaving tonight, then I think I can do something useful for the society. It would be much nicer to be sitting in my garden this evening having a barbecue or something, but I'm going to go and try and do something good for the sort of community I live in, for Cambridge, and well, hopefully some of the things that I get done in Cambridge can have a wider impact as well. So no barbecue tonight. I've put my money into recording equipment and reporting equipment rather than a barbecue, and I've decided to spend my time out of this meeting as well. Now, something else that I'm looking forward to this evening is Councillor Tunnicliffe, a Liberal Democrat, has promised a public statement on his involvement in the behind closed doors scheme for getting new highways changes in the city, which involves people who want those schemes putting up cash, and putting up the cash means that you get to go and speak to councillors at their behind closed doors prioritisation meeting. Now, I think that is obviously absolutely wrong. It's the wrong way to do things. People with cash shouldn't be able to get changes to our road schemes and get to lobby councillors when other people who are not prepared to put that cash up or don't have that cash to put up can't. It's clearly wrong. It has democratic authorisation. A committee of the county council has put this scheme together. However, what I think has happened is elsewhere in the county you need a parish council's approval for these schemes. In the city we don't have parish councils, so we're not getting that local level of sort of democratic approval and oversight. So I think the system isn't working. It's a terrible system, and I'm hoping that Councillor Tunnicliffe will tonight, as I think he's the only councillor from North Cambridge who was at the behind closed doors prioritisation meeting. I hope that he will explain why he got involved in this and what his thoughts are on how it ran. At the last meeting, lots of councillors were asking for an update on what had happened at the behind closed doors meeting, but Councillor Tunnicliffe appallingly, in my view, just sat there in silence and said that he would give the statement to tonight's meeting. So I'm really looking forward to that. We're also going to have an update from Network Rail. I'm not entirely sure what on, but I would expect some updates perhaps on the Fen Road crossing timings. They're clearly one issue, and perhaps some updates on on the first year of North Cambridge Station, perhaps the Cambridge North Station. Anyway, I should probably get over to the meeting shortly. Just having a look at my notes now to see if I've missed anything off. Just one item on the sort of Fen Road and representative democracy. The private residence meeting was promised updates from a task and finish group which has been set up by the council. Well, I think it's wrong that the council are reporting to that private meeting rather than reporting to the public formal meeting of our local councillors. So I'd like to see the North Area Committee ask for those reports to be made in public to them as well. Right, it's now about 15 minutes before the meeting, so I should get over there. It is, as I said, it's quite a scary thing to be doing, but I think I'm well practiced. I know what I'm going to be doing. My intention is to walk in just as the meeting starts, and that means that any challenges to filming will be dealt with in public as part of the meeting, or at least that's my aim. I think that's better than having people sort of approach me individually before the meeting. I film overtly. I've decided to film overtly again tonight. I think that does, in some ways, it can attract problems. Quite often I've had situations where councillors in the chairing meetings have specifically pointed to me and issued reporting restrictions rather than issuing them to everybody present. And I suspect that's because I've got a camera on a tripod, whereas other people are often reporting just pulling their phones out of their pockets, for example. So, but I think it's reasonable. I'm happy to say sort of who I am and what I'm doing. if I'm asked by the chair of a meeting, I'm happy to enter into the debate about filming, but I think I'm not keen on doing that though, because I want filming to be, as it is now by law, something that anybody can do, and you shouldn't feel intimidated or feel that you've got to speak in public if you're filming. You should just be able to put your phone out your pocket and take a clip and share it. As I said, the environment I'm expecting, like often council meetings are really dull and boring. I was going to sit in there and nothing will particularly happen, and that'll probably happen tonight, but you've got to be aware that sometimes tensions can run high. I don't think they're going to today. I think tensions tend to run high in the run-up to elections when party politicians get riled up. Presumably they're having sort of regular meetings, singing songs, and sort of it gets a bit like two sort of opposing football teams in the run-up to an election. Now we're after the elections, no elections coming up. I expect sort of everyone to be a lot calmer, but still sometimes you get quite threatening behaviour. I've had officers, even at this meeting, walk right up to me to try and intimidate me and stand in front of my camera to try and frustrate reporting. So that kind of thing can happen at any time. I'm there to try and participate. I'm a local resident, so I'm not just there to report. So I will be prepared to sort of drop my reporting standards a little bit, say if I'm unable to film members of the public who are wanting to make contributions without causing uproar. I might decide to do that in order that I can stay and participate in the meeting. But generally I think it's right that if people are lobbying councillors to spend millions of pounds of public money or to change the policing priorities, or that people who want to do that at public meetings should do so in public, knowing that they can be filmed and anything they say can be reported in the minutes and of course reported widely across the media, so people know what's done. I think that's absolutely right. You are faced to someone reporting on a meeting and essentially collecting people's personal information at the meeting with a constant stream of often real-time moral decisions, and I'm reasonably practiced with those, and I will do my best to make good judgments good judgments this evening. Right then, I better get across to the meeting. I'm going to stop the camera now just to save the batteries a little bit, and I shall join you probably outside the meeting once I've parked my bike. So I've decided to run the camera just as I'm going to go into the meeting, just in case there are any problems on the way in. I'm not expecting any. This is a venue I've been to lots of times before. I'm very familiar with it. Should feel very safe and comfortable. Just feels a little bit unnerving because you never know what's going to happen. So I'm here at the meeting venue just a few moments before the meeting starts. One problem actually I've just realised with my approach of turning up as the meeting starts. Right then, I'm here at the meeting venue just a few moments before the meeting starts. I thought I'd start my camera just before I go in case there are any problems. I'm not expecting any. One problem with sort of turning up at the last minute is not being able to write down any questions on a question slip, if that's the way that the meeting's going to be operated tonight. With area committees, it's always hit and miss. You never know quite how any public questions are going to be taken, if you're going to put up your hand, if you have to sort of write things down in advance. Anyway, I'll get in there and see how things are going today. Now I've got to think about where to sit. Right at the front gives the best sound and vision, so that's always an option. Also try and think about exits, how to leave the room if it all kind of kicks off, as it were. Let's go and see.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, can I call the meeting to order, please? My name's Jonathan James. I'm the Head of Customer Services and I'm the Senior Officer that facilitates this meeting. Before we start, can I just advise people that the toilets are through the doors here, down the end of the corridor and turn left. If there is a fire, the fire exits are there and officers will take you outside and show you to the assembly point. There's also filming going on today as well, so people are allowed to film the meetings, but please notify the chair when we elect the chair if you don't want to be filmed. We now have to elect the chair for this particular meeting, so can I ask members present who they would like to nominate as chair for the North Area Committee?
I would like to nominate Councillor Jerry Bird.
Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you very much. Jerry Bird is... Oh, sorry, can we then have a vote now, please, for Jerry Bird to be the chair?
Any other nominations?
Oh, sorry, yeah, any other nominations? Thank you.
Just in case.
Any other nominations? No? Okay. Yes, can I take a vote then, please?
Oh, we're just putting our hand up to show our support. I do that a lot.
Any against? No, thank you. So Jerry Bird is duly chair of this meeting. I will now pass you over to Jerry, who will now continue with the agenda.
Thank you very much. Okay, good evening everybody. Okay, we now need to propose for Vice Chair. Can I have nominations, please?
Yes, Chair, can I propose the empty chaired one here, Councillor Todd Jones.
Okay. Any seconders? Martin? Yeah. Okay. Is there any other nominations? Okay then, so can I take a vote then for Councillor Michael Jones as Vice Chair?
I'm just showing my
Any against? No? Okay, so welcome to tonight's meeting. I'll just go through a few bits with you. Apologies. I've got at the moment apologies, Councillor O'Reilly, Councillor Sargent and Councillor Gawthrop. Any other apologies? Okay.
We're expecting Councillor Manning. He's a little late.
Okay.
As we are.
Okay, is there any declarations of interests? Minutes? No? Okay, can we go to item 4 then, pages 5 to 14. Sorry, 5 to 12. And are there any matters arising from the minutes? Councillor Scott?
Thank you. I certainly don't wish to belabour this issue, but Councillor Manning had a statement about the residents parking in the minutes, and I would just like to submit a responding statement which is not in any way argumentative, but just sets out some of the position from my point of view. So I've given a copy to the Chair, and I'm happy to pass a copy around to every member of the panel, and of course I'll give one to Councillor Manning when he comes, and also to Councillor Tunnicliffe, because we were engaged in consultation, as we both remember, I think. Thank you. Thank you.
Any more matters arising from the minutes? No? Okay then, just to say that along with the North Area City Ward Councils, we're also joined by county councillors. County councillors are permitted to take part in the discussion on all agenda items, but are only permitted to formally vote on the police and safety neighbourhood item. Can I remind councillors, officers and members of the public to turn off their mobile phones or put them on silent? As we're not expecting a fire alarm test, upon hearing a continuous ringing of the bell, please follow the council officers and make your way out of the building. The fire exits to the back. Can I remind all those present of the importance of using microphones at all? I've just done that. Yeah, sorry. I would encourage any members of the public having difficulty hearing the discussion to raise their hands and alert an officer. Members of the public may address the committee under the open forum section, and there's an overall time limit for this section of the agenda of 30 minutes. Whilst there's no time limit for each questioner, I would ask that you keep your comments short and concise. For the comfort of councillors, officers and the public, I will call a break during the proceedings. During the meeting, have your say cards will also be handed out. We welcome your feedback so we could, any completed cards will be left on the front table. So now we go on, well before I do that actually I was quite rude. I'd like to go around the table because we have some new councillors. So we start from Councillor Richards.
Yes, so Claire Richards,
Can you use
County...
your mic?
Oh, sorry. Teacher, I'm just shouting. Claire Richards. Claire Richards, County Councillor for Castle Ward.
Jocelyn Scott, County Councillor for Arbury.
Martin Smart, Councillor for King's Hedges.
Elisa Moschini, County Councillor for King's Hedges.
Kevin Price, City Councillor for King's Hedges.
Patrick Shield, Arbury City Councillor.
Michael Jones, Arbury City Councillor, and abject apologies, Chair, for being late. Flat tire on my bicycle, if that's a good enough excuse, I don't know.
Councillor Jerry Bird, East Chesterton, and just to let you know, Councillor Todd Jones, that you're now Vice Chair.
My name's Sarah Steed, I'm the committee manager for the meeting, so I'll be taking the minutes.
Councillor Major Titala, East Chesterton.
Councillor Carl Queen, City Council for East Chesterton.
Councillor James Yale for West Chesterton.
Henry Tunnicliffe, City Councillor for West Chesterton.
Okay, can we now go on to agenda item 4? It's the action sheet. So we go through each item. Is that all right, everybody? So the first one I have from the open forum is Owen Dunn requested dog waste bins in Discovery Way and more in Bramblefields. I came back to you on that, Mr Dunn. Yeah?
I haven't seen either yet.
Well, they were asked.
Sorry, sir.
They were asked for, so I'll chase that up for you.
Please, timescale will be good. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, are we ready? Shall we go through page by page? Page 13. Tree roots opposite the Co-op Green End Road causing a trip hazard. Councillor Manning.
Perfect timing. What have I made? Well, that's obviously still ongoing because the work is, well, this is now complicated, isn't it? Because the Mayor has paused city deal schemes. So that entire, which is questionably democratic, but that entire thing is now on hold until next year, as I understand it. I don't know whether I need to check whether it actually applies to the whole thing or whether it just applies to the National Road bit. But we need to leave it on because we need to check what happens to it.
Okay. Okay, the next one is investigation to property service area around Tesco's. Continues to be untidy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and it still continues to be so. I have been contacted as I arrived here today, so a resident who has written to me and provided me with a lot of photographs which I will take to property services with a view to some serious action being taken on this because it has taken too long, it becomes embarrassing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next one is the Meadows Community Centre.
Yeah, thank you. I have an update from Jackie Hanson, and actually as described in the 26th of April written update on the agenda papers, the action sheet. It is essentially word for word, just pointing out that Hibbing Parish Council met and discussed this request regarding some aspect of funding towards the Meadows Centre from the Parish Council, but they can only revenue fund property they own, so they're not able to consider a request for funding the Meadows Centre. And the suggestion is that we've gone as far as we can with this, and a number of attempts have been made to gauge whether we now have full response, and that will become off the action list.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Next one is Milton Road pavement, road surface in need of repair. Councillor Scott.
Thank you. This was a situation where the road was in need of repair and where repairs were allegedly done, but the repairs were done in an unworked person-like manner and had to be redone, and they have been redone at no extra cost to the county, we might add, correctly so. And my understanding is, and I've been back to look, and my understanding is that it is now fixed to a proper standard.
So can this one come off then? Thank you. Okay, the next one's pavements to Albury Road and the Fourth Estate. That's another one, Councillor Scott.
This is myself and Councillor Maschini, because it's just that Arbury Road is in both King's Hedges and Arbury. And it's correct as said there are cycleways being put in along the road, and there has been an update from the county councillors, county council officers who are working on the cycleways, and they've done some readjustment in terms of their plans, but it's going ahead. So this is not fixed yet, but our understanding is that it will be fixed. But if we could leave it on track until we can confirm that the work's been done. I don't know if Councillor Todd Jones wanted to add to that, because we all got the email about the cycling. Don't worry, it's just that the cycling ways are continuing to be fixed.
That's it, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll leave it on then. Okay, the next one is for Councillor Todd Jones to liaise with the ambulance service.
Well, I haven't personally led the ambulance service. I think that's still some follow-up work to do with the council. I attended training along with other councillors and council officers on first aid and the use of defibrillators as well. That was in April at the Cambridge Regional College. I believe a number of us are now trained in terms of first aid and the use of defibrillators. But there's still some work to be done in terms of the request to have a comprehensive list of defibrillators and those that might be available at any council meeting, as well as liaising with the ambulance service. There's still some work to be done with officers and that.
Okay. Next one's Councillor Scott to check lighting levels in Hawkins and Camkin Road, but it says Councillor Price.
That's because it's in King's Hedges, Chair. I'm told that, as far as I'm aware, that the lightning levels should be back. Although this isn't the easiest time of the year to tell whether it is or not. Oh, I'm getting a head shaken at me. No?
It's still low. It's still quite low in parts. It's not even lighting.
Okay. Thanks, Kate. I'll go back.
Okay, the next one is Police and Safer Neighbourhood. That was Councillor Austin. Councillor Tunnicliffe, did you want to mention anything about that?
No, I don't have any updates. Former Councillor Austin didn't brief me on it. I think the problem was largely wiped out. The recent statistics are much more reassuring, so I think we can do the same.
So would you like me to take it off?
I think so.
Okay. Another Police and Safer Neighbourhood. Councillor Todd Jones.
Well, as mentioned in the last update, I think we've done what we can. I think it will probably confirm some breakdown of figures provided by the police. The last update was that can be removed from the action sheet. I don't think there's anything different from that, is there?
No, we have the breakdown that we can't by the moment. It's on the sheet
Yep, okay, thank you.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Next one is Councillor Todd Jones, liaise with Mayfield School and Highways Officer, but then it's got Councillor Scott,
Yes,
so...
it's an LHI.
Yeah. I have to report that sadly the LHI bid was not accepted. However, Mrs Rundland and I will be going back to Carisbrook. We're going to put in a proposal that the WLLI not only take in Carisbrook but take in Warwick Road, because there are cars that park right up to Histon Road, and we've got an agreement from one of the county officers that he will come out and do a site visit, and so we'll be going back in to endeavour to get the LHI bid through in the next round. And I should say I appreciate Mrs Rundland's hard work on this. We put in the application together, and we'll do that again. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. And the next one's for you as well, Councillor Scones.
Yeah. I'm afraid there is no start date yet for this. For these repairs to French's Road. It is urgent. We were in fact up there not long ago, and we've been back in contact. Councillor Todd Jones and I have been back in contact in relation to the severity of the potholes that are there, and they really must be repaired. But it's important that we get the whole road repaired. So I will go back and press for a start date.
And the next one's Councillor Sheehan.
Yes, thank you. This is about the TRO for the village parking on Milton Road. The LHI bid was submitted as promised. Unfortunately, the LHI bid was not successful. However, I believe my colleague Councillor Price has good news for us.
If I can, Chair. Yeah, following the question at the Greater Cambridge Partnership Joint Assembly meeting last Wednesday from Michael Page, who asked if this could be a TRO verge parking ban could form part of the plans for Milton Road because of the length of time it takes from applying for one to the implementation. And I was able to secure the agreement of the Assembly that would go through to the board. I have no reason to suppose the board will not accept that. So whilst it's not going to take place anytime soon, once that work on Milton Road starts, that will form part of it.
So would you like me to leave it on, Councillor Price?
I don't know, Chair.
Shall I leave it on till the next meeting and then we'll go from there? Lovely. Okay, the next one is Councillor Scott again.
Now on this one, some work was done on Histon Road. This is the Histon Road one, and it was done. And I understand it was completed, but I do know that residents remain dissatisfied with Histon Road, so I would just have to go back to the officers and ask them to come out again to look, and perhaps if Mrs Rundland would come with us, then we can look at exactly what needs to be done and draw it to the officers' attention that this is what needs to be done. And perhaps I should add here that because of certain HGV vehicles going down that road, it's actually exacerbating the problem of the noise, and that's become a big issue too.
Councillor Todd Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I can testify that there have been some further works on Histon Road, in as much some repairs are done near the junction with Gilbert Road and Warwick Road. Whether the works that failed to be completed, responsible for it being wrecked is another matter, but I think there are some repairs being done.
Lovely, thank you. And the next one, Councillor Scott.
Yeah. The problem here is that these shops are privately owned, and perhaps the best thing for me to do, I have raised it with the Greater Cambridge Partnership Project Officer who's working on Histon Road, but because the whole area is private, it raises difficulties in terms of negotiating with them. But perhaps if we could leave it on, and I will go back and talk with Mrs Rundland, who's raised this one with me, and perhaps we can jointly try to work out something. And if we can't resolve it, I would suggest we take it off next time. But I think it's worthwhile to try once again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I've got one here for Councillor Sargent, but he's not here, so I'll leave that on until... Oh, Councillor Price.
Yeah, wasn't going to say take it off, Chair, but it's part of an issue I want to raise later on that is connected to that.
Okay, next one is Councillor Richards.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I want to confirm that we, rather than he, have met with the Garden Walk Residents Association. I'd like to actually congratulate the residents on Garden Walk, actually. There was a lot of good work and liaison with sanctuary housing and the residents, and there has been an improvement, and we do have 2 members of staff now on site during the night, and currently I have not heard of any more issues or concerns there. So, thank you.
So, do you want it left on or taken off?
I'm happy to take it off.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next one, Councillor Manning.
There's no further update. It's been held up slightly by the fact that the monitoring officer has changed to County Council. They're just looking into it.
Okay. The next one is Councillor Richard.
Yes, we did do some, as the update says, we did do some inquiring about gritting, but that was closer to the depth of winter perhaps. There hasn't been any further updates since the need for gritting the road perhaps has felt less acutely with these temperatures. What stands on here is correct. I would suggest that we take this off.
Okay, thank you. Next one is Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've emailed the officer and spoken to them actually a number of times about getting the signage and road marking installed following the installation of the Bardell Testing Crossing, and I will continue to do so. I'm afraid the wheels of bureaucracy move slowly. Sorry, Chair.
Next one is Councillor Manning.
I'm looking at my fellow Paul councillors, but I cycled back past here the other day. I don't think there is a bin there. So I think we need to contact Nick Kester and find out what's happened. I don't think there's a bin there. So
I'm not seeing it recently.
No. I shall contact Mr. Kester.
Okay, and the next one was from Nick Kester about Discovery Way and Bramblefields. So he says here he was definitely going to be looking at waste bins along the guided busway spur and dog waste bins. So I think he's back next meeting. So we'll catch up with him then, Mr. Dunn. Is that okay? Next one is I've got Councillor Smart.
Yeah, so it's about the proposed cycle scheme outside the school, outside this school, and I think all I can really say, Chair, is that there are ongoing negotiations. It's a very difficult scheme to try to fit into the space available. So officers are still working on a possible solution with regard to what the school wants as well, in terms of their sort of bus lay-by, disabled parking, all sorts of factors that complicate the possibility of such a scheme going in. But it's still going on, so I think if you can leave it on, please, Chair.
Chair, it's probably just worth noting that that's covered by the same clause that the Mayor's put in place.
Sorry. Is there a blanket?
It's the open forum, yeah?
Well, no, I need to, on a point of order, sorry, I think. Can we be absolutely clear that Hamilton
want to be absolutely clear that the Mayor may well have requested that some schemes are paused in connection with busways and park and ride. He has not put a moratorium, and he has not the power to do so anyway, on a scheme such as Green End Road cycle scheme. Nor, I'm sure, were he here, would he wish to. There is an ongoing discussion between the Greater Cambridge Partnership and the Combined Authority in regards to a transport strategy, but that most certainly does not include a cycle scheme in Nuffield Road. If there is a pause here for any reason, it is not to do with that. It's really, really important that the minutes or any reporting of this do not somehow imply that the Mayor of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough has put a stop to an ongoing cycle scheme, because he categorically hasn't.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so we're now on the open forum. As you know, it's 30.
Thank you. Frida Taylor. I have a very serious problem with noise. I have a fine of 3 years now standing that big. The city council is not very interested, and I think we have to sell to a developer in order to find another garden and house where we can live. We are dreadfully, dreadfully upset. My husband is getting muddled. I have had investigations from an NHS 3 years ago, very serious, very expensive nuclear ones, just to find it was stress, nothing wrong cardiologically, and it is due to our neighbours.
Okay.
I can enlarge.
If you've got antisocial behaviour,
no, it's not antisocial behaviour.
Is it to do a police matter?
No.
No. So what's
you want to do?
Well, it's just that we're on the open forum at the moment, so I just wanted to know what your question was. So
my question is why nothing is being done about it. The nursery school of 22 years standing didn't cause a ripple with 53 children. 2015 it was extended to 150, and their policy is high noises, shrieking voices, shrill voices, little children just letting off steam. Out of 10 hours a day, perhaps 3 hours arbitrary are quiet, and it's the other side of our fence, of our garden fence. Nobody does anything about it. The city council tried to tell us there is no noise, and then they installed some equipment that only runs for 5 minutes, and I am at my wits' ends. We don't have regular meals anymore, I don't cook anymore, because it is impossible to be in our house, even in our house, not the garden only. Our garden is 90 meters long, we have cherished it for 42 years, and now we've got to let it fly. We cannot be in the garden anymore, we can't open windows anymore because of this establishment that has put itself there in a residential property, in a residential area, running a nursery school for profit. And if not soon something is being done, the director goes away to Thailand for extended holidays at the end of the summer. We won't even be able to talk to him. I'm at the moment waiting for Mr. Kite to approach. He should have this week to make an appointment to have a second shot at putting equipment in situ in order to monitor the noise. We had it over the Easter weekend, 2.5 days. The noise was there. The equipment ran, I was told, for 10 minutes at the time. It was actually 5 minutes at the time, and I sat for 2.5 days from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. to press the little button when it became red in order to record. And I'm told, yes, we can hear some noise, but that is not good enough. We don't really know, and this and that. Okay. So where does a ratepayer stand in a situation like that?
Okay, can I just ask whereabouts you live? I don't want your address, but whereabouts do you live?
In West Chesterton.
In West Chesterton. Can I suggest then that we get you to speak to the West Chesterton councillors when we break for...
Well, one of them who is here, I beg your pardon for cutting in, doesn't even look at me in my own front door.
Okay.
So that's what I have had from
We'll
that
try
side.
and discuss it with you at the next...
If it's in the county division, I'm happy to follow it up. Obviously, I'll need to establish, I'm sure. So we'll be happy to follow it up if it's not in the county division. So if we can make sure we talk to you afterwards.
Certainly, thank you.
Okay. Right, so if I go on to the open forum, first of all I have is Kay.
Thank you, Jerry. I put forward 2 questions tonight. One is following the incident earlier on in Camden Road. It seems to remind residents just how bad the road is. There was the condition of the speed bumps and the parts of the road that were never resurfaced when we had the last resurfacing of the road. The road is becoming impossible to get out of in the mornings. You can go down, if you come along from the Jenny Wren area and go down, before you get out of the road you have to wait for at least 5 turns at traffic lights at 9 o'clock in the morning to get out of the road. That was question 1. And question 2 is something that was actually spoken about earlier, is the condition of the footpath and the greenery by the doctor's surgery on Arbury Road. The doctor's surgery pavement outside that surgery is becoming very uneven. A lot of elderly residents and young mums use that surgery, and I have seen both age groups staggering when they hit a bad piece of pavement. Thank you.
Is there anybody who wants to answer that one? Okay.
Go on, Kay, as it's you, and it usually ends up me.
Can we go back to speed
With me answering you. I'm not sure the incident on Camp King Road is necessarily relevant to the state of the road on Camp King Road. I will have a word with the county councillor for King's Hedges.
I was just about to ask, is this to do with potholes? Because I have been reporting potholes on Camping Road since the moment I took office. We have a mechanism to report the potholes, but we are also told that while the report is useful, they have a rolling scheme to come and fill them. And the more you tell them to hurry up and come to the area, the less they appreciate it. However, I will continue to press.
Right, it's just not the potholes, it's actually the speed bumps. We have some rain, and those speed bumps, somebody going over can just skid straight off.
So they're in a poor state of repair.
The greenery is overgrown. Round by the crossing past Tesco's, Jenny Wren, that has become exceedingly dangerous, that area. The speed bump there has been repaired, but once again it's in need of repair again.
I will go on site very soon and take pictures and sort it out. Well, report, as it were.
And neither of us are in a position to answer your question on Arbury Road, but I'm sure.
I've already phoned the county council. I've already phoned the county council when I came back from the holidays, and they're going to send an officer down to check the bus stop markings and the debris markings, and then look at the area.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Michael Bond?
Both of them?
Yeah.
Right. This Saturday is the main event of Chesterton Festival, Community Fun Day, on Chesterton Recreation Ground, Church Street, nearby the church there. Open to the public from 1 till 5. Lots of entertainment, lots of stalls, and lots of interesting things to see and do. I believe the City Council even have a few stalls there, so you can find out what they're very up to. So what we aim to do is to run an event which is safe for everyone from 9 months to 99 and above. So, just thanking the committee for the grant which has made it possible for us to run the event yet again. So that's one. And as treasurer of the festival, I will be there, and I'm looking forward to a successful event. That's that one. The other one was at the last meeting, when I raised something about the Section 106 Arts Fund, a lady on my right said, well, what about the village sign? I did, in fact, put in an application, and that is being considered next week by the Environment and Community Scrutiny Committee, and there is a recommendation that the money earmarked from the Elizabeth House redevelopment for the village sign that hasn't been used by the appointed artist for that project is now available, and the committee is being invited to pass it through to Chesterton Community Association, subject to conditions. And I'm happy to say that I find no problem with the conditions, and we'll look forward to actually getting some steam behind this one. So that's really an update on something which was raised, and we're looking forward to the public engagement side of it, and we'll be talking to the relevant officer at the City Council on the way forward, and aim to try and get it in place during the coming year.
Lovely, that's great news, thank you. So, Lillian, would you like to give your question?
My question is regarding the thundering trucks coming down on Histon Road from A14 diversions. So during the last months, all residents along Histon Road have experienced serious problems with night sleep, shaking houses, cracks in the walls, etc. And we have contacted all possible departments involved without anyone taking the responsibility to improve the situation. At last, our MP Daniel Seichner at the meeting with Highways had an agreement regarding the future for communication action to diminish the air and noise pollution. We've also presented both a petition and a question from the public to Greater Cambridge Partnership with no result. So, Histon Road Area Residents Association would therefore like to have an answer to following questions from the police present, since there is a speed camera on Histon Road by Harrisbrook Road. Is the speed camera working between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. night time? Will the speed camera register HGV during that time when they travel in convoys? If so, how many were speeding during May and June, up till June 17th, I want to hear, 2018?
I think it's the police that can respond, because I actually did follow this up and got the response that the operation of the cameras is a matter for the Police Joint Protective Services Cameras, Tickets and Collisions Unit operating across Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire. If the police representative at the meeting today is from the Cambridgeshire Constabulary's Neighbourhood Policing side, then in referring to the Cameras, Tickets and Collisions Unit, they will be able to get the information. So I'm not sure if our officer has been able to do that or can do it. Thank you.
Lovely, thanks very much.
Would you like me to respond? I have the information.
Oh, right, okay, that'd be lovely.
Okay, so the three questions. Yes. Thank you. Yes. So the camera is an enforcement camera that works at any time of the day or night. The camera deployed at this location records speed violation, is not a data recording device, it doesn't record weight. And the third question, that information could only be obtained if we applied for a Cambridge County Council piece of equipment which would enable us to record the weight, speed and type of vehicle, and it goes from everything from pedal cycle right the way through to HGV. But that's equipment that the County Council would be able to use if we requested it.
Since this is apparently a lengthy, ongoing diversion scheme and may take quite some time, years, maybe it would be possible to invest and buy this equipment. And where do we apply? County Council?
I think cameras are a police matter, so I'll hand over to the police, but I would just like to add at this point that the County Council officers, and particularly Sonia Hanson, has been working really hard on this matter, as we all know, and she is now going to raise an additional matter with Highways England that is the responsible body. The county didn't ever give any permission for diversions down residential roads. That is happening without the permission permission of the county at all, and it's Highways England that's responsible. But what Sonia is now investigating is the possibility of their shutting off the slip roads during the time that they are doing the work, shutting them off to the HGV vehicles, so that the HGV vehicles wouldn't be able to come through the slip roads and therefore down Histon Road, Milton Road, Victoria Road, Huntington Road, King's Hedges Road. Yeah, so that is on the...
So where would they go? Sorry. Just out of interest, where they would go. Yeah.
So, but perhaps if we hand over to the police on the matter of the cameras, because I think it's your bailiwick.
Well, first, I think your answer is the most appropriate because it actually tackles the problem. Everything else is designed to displace the problem. But if we speak to Highways England, they can resolve it at source. In answer to the other question, the device that would need to be purchased is not for me to purchase; it's for the county to purchase. And thirdly, just to confirm, the cameras are county council property. We enforce and facilitate the enforcement through them. But I think your first answer will resolve the problem rather than just try and tackle it by enforcement.
Okay, lovely. Mr. Ayer, would you like to do your piece when the police are on? Because it's a police matter you brought up.
It's both police and actually City House.
Would you want to do it now?
Is that okay?
Okay, yeah.
Hello. I live in Darwin Road. I'd like to congratulate the police on their recent arrests and convictions. The area is definitely more peaceful. It's really good. Specifically, though, I've noticed that later that you'll be recommending that the street is deprioritized, or its priority is taken off the street. I just wanted to point out that at least on a small number of data points, we noticed that people that have been convicted spend time in prison, come back, live at home, and basically start reoffending. And so, to that end, I'd like to ask, firstly, when those offenders are council tenants, is there any notion or thought of actually evicting them from the properties in which they're actually, from the property in which they're living? As the first thing. The second thing is there any recognition or on the part of the police that this is happening, and then we see it happening? And is there anything you can say that there's any way to actually deal with basically what amounts to convicts coming back and just immediately falling back into a life of crime, because they're just slotting straight back into the houses and the area in which they've actually been good offending in the first place. So as you can see, it was both a city homes issue and a police issue, which is why I present.
Okay, Linda and Kelly can have a word with you.
Yes, my name is Linda Kelly. I'm the Safer Communities Manager for the City Council. We don't normally talk about specific cases at a public meeting, but I can tell you that we can evict people who have a conviction against their names, and we do on a regular basis, and we will always look at the issues for the neighbours and whether that person returning would be problematic for neighbours and would continue with the behaviour that they had in the past. And we will do that in all cases. And that's as much as I can tell you at the moment. But we always look at each case very seriously.
Okay, Mr. Dunn?
Again, that's probably one for the police part.
Would you rather leave it to
Yeah,
the
leave
police
it.
part?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Okay, next one, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. It's now a year or so since the notice board on the path to the Riverside White Bridge was vandalised. I reported it in July last year to the council, and I've kept following it up with the council and with councillors, and it's still today in an unusable state. So I'd like to see it either repaired or removed. And given that now we've had a whole year of campaigning from my part to trying to get some action on this, I'm going to ask the committee if you can put it on your list of things that you keep track of to see if we can get it removed or replaced. when discussing this, might as well try and get two things for my money, there's also been raised that there used to be a sign explaining the Swift box on the round seating section on the bridge. That's also not there at the moment, so perhaps those two things could be fixed. I think it's quite important. It's a major gateway into the north of Cambridge. Huge numbers of people go past it every day. It's been in a state of disrepair for a year. It does make the area look uncared for and unkempt. I care for it. I've been trying to get something done. I'd like to see the committee take it on.
I did take it on about the notice board, and I had an email back to say that they were waiting for this perspex to be measured, and then it would be put on. So I will get back onto them, and that was the last time you tweeted it. I got straight back onto them again because I've already had it done once, cleaned up, and I'll do it again for you, okay? And I promise I'll be going after them, all right? Okay, Joshua? No, it's all right if you, yeah?
I just wanted to know about the CCTV, basically, what's happening with it. Do we have any information on what's happening with CCTV for Fen Road?
Today I went to have a look at Fen Road with a colleague, and we think we've identified about 3 different places that we may be able to put up a camera. We have to now talk to our CCTV operations manager about the feasibility of that, but we think it will be quite doable. We have all our redeployable cameras are out and being used at the moment. We have 6 of them and they're all located, but 2 of them are coming up for removal in about the next 2 weeks, and we will certainly prioritise the Fen Road area for one of those cameras.
So do you know roughly how long it will take to finalise getting the CCTV put in? Because it's been 12 months I've been coming to these meetings and hearing the same answer each time.
No, we did put up a camera and it was vandalised,
Yeah, that was
and
12
then
months
we didn't have a position, and we also had a new system going in the city as well. We are at a point now where we hope we will put up that camera in the next few weeks.
Is the council allowed to put in a deadline? I mean, or are we allowed to have any reassurance as residents that there might be a deadline when this finally happens?
I don't want to give an absolute date, but I assure you that we're taking it very seriously. We do it as quickly as we possibly can, and it won't be very much more than the next few weeks.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay then, so we go on to agenda item 7, which is the policing and safer neighbourhoods. And can I also welcome Police Crime Commissioner Jason Ablewhite. Thank you for coming. Okay.
Okay, good evening. It's not very often that I get to speak before the boss.
Make a motion to
As you'll notice, we provided quite a comprehensive update this last 6 months on the matters of Fen Road. That being the first priority that was set for us. It's important just to note, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure that most of you do, that we met in between a public meeting here, in fact, a few weeks ago, where we were able to discuss the matter over about 2.5 hours in a lot more detail. We were able there to pick up a greater sense of exactly, not necessarily what the issues were, but a greater sense of detail of what the issues involved and what the main factors were involved within that. So as you can see from our update, I'm not going to read it word for word because I'd rather leave some time for questions. We were able to deploy our community action team straight onto the matter that was brought to us with a few more specifics. They are very much targeted on, I think, visible policing that have reassured many people. We've had some very good feedback. That is the very beginning of the work that we're going to have to undertake. I would just like, I said this at the meeting that we had a few weeks ago, when I use the word we, I speak on behalf of a partnership, so I sit on the Community Safety Partnership. My officers and I sit on the problem solving group. So when I say we in the context of Fen Road, I do speak on behalf of that, the officer group that we've now formed, which involves my team, the County Council ASB team. It involves the antisocial behaviour and environmental health officers from South Cambs District Council, and will in time involve officers from the county, and also some of the youth locality teams, and some people working with young people, and a wide range of partnership workers. So what we think that we're looking probably at 2 or 3 years worth of work, which is not unusual for a problem of this scale. So to start with what we've done immediately, the Community Action Team have started regular patrols in the areas, which have reinforced the police presence that was already there. Because they're a smaller group of officers that are quite targeted, they've been able to get to know the people and the problems that are actually occurring. So we've got the same officers that are deploying sort of day in, day out, who really get to know the problems, which has been really, really useful. Through that, we've been able to really form a much better idea of the intelligence picture and who the specific people are that are involved, and the seizing of 2 specific vehicles does seem to have taken an immediate effect upon the reports of antisocial behaviour and antisocial driving that we were having. Essentially what we found so far, and I don't want to belittle the fact that this has been a problem that's been going on for some time, but it's important for us to understand what's behind the concern, what's behind the problem, so we can actually start to put in place a problem-solving plan that involves actually unpicking the problem and solving it. The visible policing that you are seeing at the moment, I know people like, I know people feel reassured by it, and it is giving us some prosecution opportunities in the here and now. It isn't the long-term solution. I don't believe it's the Cambridge way, I don't believe it's the Chesterton way, I don't believe that actually what we want is a micro-police state where we have to have police on the street all the time to maintain law and order. For the moment, it's an interim position whilst we get a grip and we start to unpick some of the other issues behind it. When I walk away today, nothing will change. The Community Action Team will stay focused on East Chesterton. We're not ready to move away yet, so you have my reassurance on that to start with. The way in which we've broken down the problem solving for this particular area is really going to focus on the here and now, so the road safety and the concerns around antisocial behaviour, some of the intimidation that we've seen and the threats, and the investigation into those things. We're also then going to look at the cohesion issues that we have, and that will be, to start with, we'll be involved within that, and that will be something that we want to hand over to the community and the relevant groups that are involved. We're also looking at long-term police engagement work as well, so how we communicate with you. One of the things that I spoke about at the public meeting was that we're not giving you enough information. We weren't giving enough information out for you to know where you stand, how safe you are, what exactly is going on. And we started to do that, we started to push a lot more information out. Now, we're still finding our feet with that, because what we're finding is certain pieces of information that we're putting out are very helpful. Unfortunately, that information can be spun, it can be taken out of context, and it can be sensationalised by those that wish to do so. So as much as we're pushing more information out to you as residents, we're also pushing that out to everybody who's interested. We've also noticed that with an increase of information put out, we're having to answer a lot more questions, which we're getting used to. Certain concerns that have been raised on social media forums that we don't have access to, as much as we're invited to, we're not allowed to be involved in your groups. We have to have what's called RIPA authority to do that, and also at the moment we don't have personal accounts that could be invited, but we are looking at ways in which we can do that. Some of the information that we're providing with, when it goes off into the kind of unseen public domain, becomes rumour and then supposition, and then becomes quite dangerous. So we've seen a lot of information taken out of context and not used in the right way, so we're still getting used to that. So we'd ask you just to bear with us. We'll try and get you more information, but I think what we need to do is be able to answer questions more quickly, whether we use Facebook or Twitter, or perhaps some sort of online method to do that, or more regular meetings, we need to do that. But certainly in the last 2 weeks, some certain issues with some antisocial behaviour in a boat has been dealt with. It's been a bit clunky, let's just say that, in terms of how it's been dealt with within the community on the chat forums. We hope to link in with the county council and just review some of the work they've done long term with the road safety layout, and then bring that into how we're dealing with the road safety matters as well. So in terms of where we are now, we have the officers group, which is going to meet once a month, which involves the aforementioned partners. We are just about to get our residents group on its feet, and what that is for us, that is a residents group that's going to feed back and hold me to account. You hear me talk about 4 things in the last meeting. That's getting information out to you, that's giving access to local policing, that's giving you an influence over what we do, and then giving you answers at the end of it. They're the 4 things that I want to achieve. And having the residents group formed, they'll have very regular access to us and my team, and you can get answers from us a lot more quickly, and you can hold us to account almost instantly. You can have us on the end of the phone. I'm meeting with the leader of the council in a couple of days to speak about wider partnership working and other powers that we have available to us. And obviously we continue to work around the emerging issues. So for example, we have both the community fair and we have Midsummer Fair this weekend, which we know is a busy time for Cambridge, but a busy time for our travelling community as they celebrate an important date in their calendar as well. So we're working with both sets of communities to make sure that goes smoothly. So I think, how would you want to do this, Chair? Do you want to take questions on Fen Road now?
Yes, please. And I've got these 2 questions here. So can I just answer, Mr. Dunn, do you want to give your question now to Spencer Rogerson?
Slightly away from Fen Road, but it doesn't include it. I don't know if you're aware that the Dockless Bike Facility, OFO, have marked various areas of Chesterton, King's Hedges and Arbury as no-go zones, as in you can't park their bikes there. I don't know whether you have any statistics for theft of OFO bikes in particular areas, or whether you have any idea about how we can combat this and make it so that dockless bikes can be used more safely in these areas.
The answer is no. We don't have any specific data on OFO bikes being stolen. I would like to clarify with them that they are reporting them as stolen. It's not something that I've noticed. And legally, it'd be quite interesting to understand when an OFO bike is actually, when it becomes stolen. But that would be an interesting debate for a court at some point as well. But yeah, Sergeant Williams will have a look at that. And so we've got 2 other things to update on. I don't know if you want to take questions on Fen Road perhaps now. Sergeant Williams will give the other 2 updates, and then perhaps take any other questions just as a suggestion.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, Michael?
I think OFO need to clarify, because it looks to me, from what I'm seeing around the area, is it's deliberate vandalism of OFO bikes by persons or persons unknown. Because I see so many wrecked and being ripped apart. And one, in fact, in Martin Star Lane, had a saddle removed. And somebody put a saddle by my front door, which I thought I'd possibly cover it. I see the saddle was then later in Martin Star Lane, but the OFO bike had gone.
Claire, did you want to say something?
Yeah, lots and lots of... I mean, it's just a question really, because I read the report with interest, and I know there's a very clear reference to the fact that, as you said, this is not a long-term solution. You know, there's a short-term solution, and there's a need to work with other partners, who clearly would be the city and county councils. And I was just looking up from the Fen Road Steering Group votes from 2012, when, and I can go back even further, when actually exactly the same issues were there, and exactly the same need to resolve in a more physical way the issues around Fen Road, rather than being policing. So we've already had, what was it, 400,000 or 200,000 pounds spent along Fen Road in what is a very good cycle scheme, but doesn't do anything to address the issues and in some ways makes them more dangerous. You know, we have got the issue of the bridge, which is coming along, at which over 2,000 people a day are going to be making journeys on the predicted things and having to cross that road, and where the county council, according to the LLF, are actually proposing to take no measures in terms of risk assessing the people making those journeys at any time, day or night, despite the fact they're just by Mossbank. So one, given the bridge is coming, this strikes me as a particularly important issue, because people in East Chesterton understand the issues when they're going down there. I do. People just going to and from the station in Abbey at all times of day and night will not be on the lookout, but they will be expected to cross that road. And I'm very concerned that when I raised this at the local liaison forum, Mike Davies said that there was no measured plans, they had considered it, no crossing, no measures, nothing could be done. And I think Jerry and Carla were there, expressed the view that it was a 20-mile-an-hour road, at which we laughed. So I think there are serious concerns there. And I'd like to sort of ask at what level these discussions are going on, and I entirely appreciate that that's a difficult question for you. But if you're looking for a long-term physical re-engineering of the road, and we are concerned about the new cycle bridge, you know, this is sort of the place where I'm expecting it to be discussed at Lewis's level and Jason's level, and not in here at this. And I've been listening to this for 10 years, but I'm worried about bridge coming. And I would certainly like somebody to talk to Matt Davies, and Ian is on the LLF, and absolutely look at the transport assessment for that bridge, which is predicting 1,600 journeys across and back daily to start with, going up to 2,400, because I read the transport assessment. So that seems to me something which ought to be taken as a priority. And I believe Councillor McQueen thinks the same.
Okay, is there any other questions for the police? Oh, sorry, Mr Taylor.
Thank you. Well, the police have asked us what items we want them to be considering in the Fen Road, Water Street and that area. Something that I'd like to add to their list, obviously not as important as the vehicle-related violent crime, but somewhere on that list, I'd like to have dangerous dogs. If you look at the reports from in the Cambridge News and on social media, you can see the kind of problems that people are having when cycling through the area and having dogs attack them. Something that I think we need to clarify is what the role is of the council's dog warden versus the police. Because at the moment the council say they can't do anything if there's any hint that the dog might be dangerous. There must be something between sort of a dog that's so placid that the council officer's willing to come out and deal with it versus the police coming along with firearms and shooting the thing. So there must be some threshold, and I think it would be really useful if councils considered what the options are, and also you look at what your options are in terms of regulation that you can put in place to give the police and council officers more powers to deal with dogs. Can I also say something about these private meetings chaired by some random member of the public, and just say that I think I really value the North Area Committee and seeing representative democracy functioning and having councillors holding the police to account. One thing that we've seen is that private meeting has been promised reports on the council's task and finish group. So I'd like to see those reports being made in public here and being made accessible to all of us, rather than just those who find out about these residents' meetings. Thank you.
Are you talking about the police meeting that we set up recently in May?
That's right, and I think it'd be much better if, like, one thing the police have said is that there's no time at these meetings to deal with things properly. But one thing you can do is have a special meeting of the area committee. Those have been some of the most well-attended meetings that I've seen in Cambridge over the 15 years I've been watching local councils in Cambridge. That's a way to get people along. People will know, just as they do with the private meeting, what time it starts, and that they won't have to wait through lots of things to get to the policing item.
Okay, yeah, for that meeting now, no minutes were really taken. It was just so the residents of East Chesterton could speak to the police, and that's what happened. And I set up the meeting, so my residents could be heard, and then from then on I stood down and said it would be left to the residents to work. So I didn't take any minutes, did you, Ian? Or anybody?
No, I think Rich is making a perfectly good point that we do need to have an overview back to the area committee. You know, I don't think any of us have any intention of anything else, do we? I mean, we will have reports back to the area committee. It's in everyone's interest for that to happen.
So is there any more questions for the police? No? Okay.
Are you asking? Is that including us?
Yeah. Yes,
Oh,
sorry. Yes.
sorry.
Yeah.
Goodness me. I'm sorry, I thought you were just dealing, questions from members of the public and then come to us, because there are sort of a couple of points I wanted to make, and one of them is partly in line with one of the questions already today about deprioritising Darwin Drive, and I think we would want to know that you're entirely confident that if that was the case, that the problem that was there in the first place is not going to come straight back. I'm interested in the county line drug dealing and how much of an effect or how big an issue you think that it is, well, across, we're talking about the north area, so the north area of the city. And I will speak to one of you outside here, because I have concerns about an individual who I think is forced out of their premises almost on a daily basis. So I'd welcome finding out how big a problem that you think that is, and if I can take that one up. There was one other thing which was about, and it was about wider ASB given the acute nature of Fen Road, and you talked about other hotspot areas and areas of concern and adopt a similar approach. Well, one of the areas of concern, and this is where I go back to Councillor Sargent's part at the beginning, where it was talking about antisocial motorcycling that occurs in the area. It reduced quite a bit during the sort of colder, darker nights and such, but I note that it's beginning to start up again across King's Edges, across Arbury and across West Chesterton, and I'd really welcome you telling me that you already know about this and that you're dealing with it, and if you don't, that now you do, that you will be. Thank you.
Okay, I was never good at the generation game, so I'll go back and try and remember all the different questions. In regards to the OFO bikes, strangely enough, OFO didn't consult us on their business model, which is a unique one. I know that they're not the only provider of that type of service. I think what we need to do is go away and speak to them about what they're reporting to us again. I'm not quite sure that we know. Most businesses have a threshold as to when they'll report, and some of that is actually quite high. Before they'll reach a threshold of loss before they'll start reporting to the police. So we need to make sure that they are. They've got a business model which is based around making money with actually quite a significant risk in leaving the bikes as they are. And again, not wishing to speak out of turn, but their business model obviously impacts upon what we can deliver for them if they're going to leave their bikes as they do. So we'd have to just judge how, it might not be something that you want us to spend our time on based upon it's the fact that it's their business model and they know the risks. I think the Commission is going to answer the wider questions that was the next question. In regards to Darwin Drive, Sergeant Williams is going to give an update in a second on that. I just want to go back to that idea that we spoke about last time, that when we deprioritise something, it doesn't mean a complete withdrawal. Tying in with the first question about Darwin Drive, displacement tends to be our last option as a partnership. It is an option, and I know that there's always a community that has to bear the brunt of something. However, if you place an offender in a new location, it only further empowers what they can do because nobody knows them. They have anonymity. In a community where they are known, then there are pros and cons. So there's no right one size fits all. But that's something that the probation team would look very carefully at, and they would do that with us and all the various other agencies that are involved, including housing and all those sorts of agencies as well. So, as Linda said, we won't comment on an individual case, but there's a spectrum of options, and there are often reasons why we do that. And displacement, with any problem, tends to not be the solution. There we go. Was there anything else?
Can I ask?
There was another question, wasn't there? From
Yeah, there was me come down.
Let me ask Mr. Taylor's question.
It was about the dogs, wasn't it?
The dangerous dogs, you're right about the it's not an ambiguity, there's a crossover to when something is the dog warden's responsibility, but again, that's something that Linda and I can take as an action to discuss to make sure there's a clear protocol. And the other matters around the potential, I think most authorities are having to consider their position around PSPOs with the removal of the old legislation, I believe, in terms of dog fouling. So there might be an opportunity there for that to be looked at. And then in regards to the meetings, I'm quite happy to do what the residents feel is best for them. I'm not, as long as people get time with us, I'm not worried. We also have the ability to call our own police consultation meeting, which will be minuted, which we can report into, but I leave that up to the committee.
Okay, lovely. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I want to go with Mr. Dunning. Mr. Dunning, that's it. And Councillor Price on Darwin Drive. There in Agram Street area, there is still a lot of aggravation going on down there. Having spoken to one of the residents today, there is concern that the police will drop it as a priority. That's all I wish to say. Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay, the next one I've got is Layla.
Oh, good evening. Yes, please. I'd like to know, please, why the police presence is so low in our areas. I just come back from abroad, and the police are abundant everywhere you go, and you can't miss them. But when you come to Cambridge, I'm sorry, no PSOs, we never see anybody in our area. So where are our police hiding?
First of all, can I just introduce myself? I'm Sergeant Tracy Williams. I've taken over the north area of Cambridge, so your area since May the 1st. Long time in the job, 17 years in the job, former duty sergeant for Cambridge. So I know Cambridge as a whole, and I'm getting to know North Cambridge a bit better over time. If I can deal with Aitman Street, Darwin Drive, first of all, and the other one comes first. So since the arrest, remand and subsequent conviction of the Alley brother, the murder of James Cromwell, the requirement for police attendance has come down in the area. After the arrest and conviction of the one for murder and his brother for witness intimidation, they obviously moved out the area into prison. The number of calls for service to the area has deteriorated, decreased dramatically. And we've had a lot of intelligence and people coming back to us saying, do you know what, since they've left the area, the crime rate has gone down. Certainly this is shown on our figures, the crimes that are reported to police and the matters that are reported to police. If there are things going on, if there's aggravated factors there, these certainly have not come to my attention, and I do a search on the databases every single day to see which calls are coming in, which areas are affected. It certainly has not come to my attention that there is an increase in aggravation in the Darwin Drive, Aitman Street area. That is why I did suggest that it was deprioritised. As my inspector has said, that doesn't mean that you're just not going to see any police in the area. It just means that we're not going to be actively there on a daily basis, walking up and down the roads. Obviously, any calls for service to that area will be treated as they would do for any other area in Cambridge. Do I have any questions regarding that specific area, you know, and we'll chat to you afterwards.
There's the council here.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, hi Tracy. It's quite difficult, I think, in the Avon Street Darwin Drive area because I've had a lot of discussion with the police at the height of and following the incidents and since the arrest of the Ali brothers. And there's not much I can say here, but I know that there are concerned that there are significant criminal elements still in the area and still operating. So if this is to come off as a priority, and I quite accept what you and Inspector Rogerson said about that doesn't mean that the police are no longer going to give it attention and have some focus on it. But if it's going to come off as a priority, then I would like to have a meeting with yourself and perhaps Inspector Rogerson and discuss some of the things that I have previously discussed with the police and perhaps go through some of the issues and some of the individuals that are still a concern in the area.
Yeah, by all means, yeah, you can have that.
Okay.
We can arrange a meeting after this.
So, okay, and I will liaise with residents who might be concerned about the ongoing activities in the area. Okay.
And Councillor, you wanted to speak?
Thank you, Chair. So good to see Tracy, Paul and Jason. Good to see you here. So what I want to say is quite simple. I'll just a bit more detail as well, but basically I'd like to ask on behalf of residents that you really protect residents from crime and disorder in Cambridge, especially North Cambridge where we are. So going back to last autumn, Jason, I've already spoken to you about the incident where taxi drivers were assaulted in the city centre. The newspaper spoke about police looking at CCTV of the incident and following up from there. But the police never attended that incident, and that was a concern, I think, at the time for many people. And more recently, we've had Fen Road, which is well, it's been going on for years, really. I won't talk about that too much. I don't know too much about it exactly, but I know it's a terrible condition for people that live in the area. Last night I saw a resident, a piece of casework. It's a very concerning case, and she has all sorts of problems, health-wise and so on. But she also has problems with crime and disorder. So there are 3 men quite close to her who are causing all sorts of problems with regard to drugs, drug taking, drug dealing, prostitution, violence, knocking on a door. And what she said to me was that when she has phoned the police, she's been told to shut her door and stay in her house, stay in her flat. And I thought about that afterwards. You know, in fact, the bedroom window doesn't actually lock, in fact. And I will be taking that up with City Homes because that's a City Council issue. But I suppose maybe it's a reasonable thing to do. You're under pressure. You only have so many resources you can allocate. You know, it's all about assets, isn't it? But you know, she is a very frightened woman, and I understand her position. And you know, when people are frightened, I think the police need to do something about that. They need to actually act. Someone mentioned physical policing earlier. I think maybe there is a case for a bit more physical policing, seeing people actually out there telling people what they can and can't do. And we're not necessarily seeing that. Another resident I've been working with casework on in another part of North Cambridge, and that family phoned me yesterday evening while I was getting tea ready, and I spoke to the woman and the husband, and they want to move there because they're so frightened to live in their house because of they were robbed, and now they're fearful that when the man gets out of prison he will attack them because they gave information to the police. And but the robbery hasn't been solved. They're still waiting for fingerprints and such like. So basically, just coming back to the main point I'm making is that I believe that I understand that you're really you have problems with resources because of central government, because of the Tory administration that's made so many cuts over so many years. You have problems. And I know that you do policing because you want to help the community. It's a noble cause. But some residents, and I am a great believer in talking up North Cambridge, you know, not talking about the bad things, but I talk about the good things, always. but there are individual cases of people who are very fearful, and those people I think need help from the police. So that's my question.
Obviously, I can't comment on the individual cases that you're talking about because I don't know about them. They haven't. Well, obviously, we haven't got any names. My whole stance since taking over the North of Cambridge is that I do have a small team. You're completely right. I don't have umpteen numbers of officers, which would be lovely, but not realistic. However, what my officers are doing, they are going out. My PCSOs as well. They are going back out into the community. They're being briefed by myself every day. They're being asked to target certain areas, and that's going on me looking at the calls coming in and seeing where the hotspots are for that day, for that week. So I take a long-term approach to everything. I did join the police to help the community. That was the whole reason why I joined it in the first place, and that is what I will continue to do. I'm happy to talk to you about the individual cases or email, and we can have a conversation regarding that, so I can look into it further and complete further research on there to see how we can help in that respect. I think the inspector has spoken to one resident and he'll talk.
Yeah, I think the resident that you mentioned, it sounds very familiar for a lady that we've been dealing with Linda's team as well. But don't forget, you're empowered to speak to us directly about that person. Matters like that don't have to come here to be resolved. These things are important. We look to you to bring those things to us immediately. I wouldn't want to feel that lady, as an example, is not getting the help that she needs, or doesn't feel that she's getting the help that she needs. It's really, really important that we work together to do that. In terms of resources, and what you're saying about the not always focusing on the negative, I think what we need to remember is that resources are not finite, but within all of that, we are responding to up to 300 calls for service a day. We don't often speak about domestic violence here. We don't often talk about CSE every time. We don't talk about modern day slavery. We sometimes talk about dwelling burglary. All of those things, as we talked about in the document, are our priority. And actually getting people to those calls for service within that very small, kind of often 10-minute gap is what we do. There are people that aren't able to access us as a service very easily. Sometimes we're not the most easy to find for everybody. So if there are people that are falling between the cracks, we rely on this sort of environment and outside of to do that. So please don't feel that you can't bring those people to us straight away, because we absolutely ask that you do highlight those people to us whenever, as soon as you can. But I think I'm pretty confident that I have spoken to that lady, because the story sounds very familiar.
Okay, thank you. Ian.
I just thought I put something actually on the Facebook group about saying I was at this meeting, were there any questions? And the first thing to say is that there were a couple of posts actually saying thank you very much to the police for what you've been doing off Fair Road, particularly to Jess, who's mentioned specifically one resident. But one question that's just come up is, I think the answer is going to be yes, but I might just ask it, that you're aware you've got this problem with laughing gas canisters being used and misused, so okay. So I'll just confirm to them. And the other thing I was just going to say, I feel like because an officer was mentioned earlier, Mike Davis, who's the project manager for the Chisholm Trail Bridge. I think it's just worth clarifying what he actually said at the LLF. What he was asked was whether the Chisholm Bridge project could essentially make alterations to Fen Road, and his answer was basically on the lines of, well, no it can't, because it has no remit to do that. I don't want any residents here to get the impression, because I'm vice chair of that forum, that this bridge is just being clogged down with no concern for the local community. There have been a number of discussions going back a couple of years about the bridge with safety measures regards to lighting, the entrance and exits to the bridge, which are extremely constrained. We are still trying to find an alternative route for when the bridge lands on the East Chesterton side. So, and this is an ongoing process as well, because there's going to be a series of detailed discussions. Now the project's been delayed again, thanks to Carillions collapse. There's going to be a series of detailed discussions about the impact of that bridge on the local area. So please don't get the impression this is just being plugged down with no regards for the local area. It certainly isn't.
Okay, I know Carla wants to speak, but you didn't answer Councillor Price's question about drug dealing?
That's my next one.
Oh, right.
I haven't gotten to it yet. I did it in reverse order. So, the question was regarding dealing with offenders and protecting the vulnerable in the community. So the team who actually deal with the short-term aspects of the drug dealing, etc., is a team led by PS 4 Street. They have executed many warrants in and around both North Cambridge and other areas as well. 29 individuals have already been arrested for possession with intent to supply. As I said, these warrants remain ongoing. There was another warrant that was carried out this morning that I know somebody spoke to our superintendent, Mr. Hutchison, about. That again was a very successful warrant and led to the arrest of an individual who had a large amount of Class A drugs on him. So that again was a successful warrant. Obviously I can't go into which addresses have been targeted. County lines, you mentioned county lines. Yes, county lines is on the increase. We are well aware of that, and at the moment we are on top of it. We are working hard, both for Streets team, the CAT team and my team are well aware of the dangers that they pose, both to the general public but also to the vulnerable people that they're targeting and the properties that they're entering. I was at a problem solving group yesterday. A couple of addresses came up as to that these are potentially where they're going. I need a little bit more information than that. What I would ask is that if people do have intelligence regarding drug dealing people who are offending, then they are to get in contact, even if you don't want to call 101, to email in or to go on our website and send in the information. Even if it's anonymous, and then we can follow it up. My job is to protect the vulnerable. And I certainly don't want any drug dealer, whether they be from Cambridgeshire or from anywhere else in the country, coming into our county and targeting these people and turning them out of their own homes and making it very difficult for them to live there. So it is a priority, it will remain a priority. However, if you ever want to chat to me about it, if you have any information regarding it, I will gratefully receive it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor McQueen?
Yeah, it's a couple of things.
Put your mic on.
Microphone.
Oh yeah, sorry. Thank you. So firstly, to reassure Councillor Smart, the police have a victims hub. So when they've gone through the system, do you still refer?
Yes, we will.
Yeah,
we will
so
refer them to the victims hub so that they get ongoing support.
So there is intensive support after. Yeah. And secondly, about the Chisholm Trail. When I was at that LLF meeting, Councillor, there was no reassurance to residents of what was going to be put in place so pedestrians and cyclists could cross at that part of the road by the bridge safely. So I don't think you really responded very well there to Claire. And there's something else I wanted to say as well. Oh yeah, feedback from meeting the Commissioner. The canisters aren't illegal, so they struggle to do things about that, but it is illegal to deal them. But as regards to, yeah, just wanted to say that. Okay. Yeah. All right, okay. And thank you for coming, and you're doing brilliant. Thank you. You've noticed a real difference here.
Very kind.
Okay. Is there somebody else who wants to talk?
Can I have an answer about the motorbikes?
Oh, the motorbike, sorry. And then it's Lisa.
I can say something about the motorbike. So yes, we did have the spate of motorbikes. I can't remember how long ago it was now. I was duty sergeant at the time. how that decreased dramatically was by the arrest of the main offender of that after he fell off his motorbike, which is a shame. He fell off his motorbike, he was apprehended, and suddenly it just decreased dramatically, and basically it was at an end. I have not been made aware that this is becoming a problem again. However, I am now aware. I will have a look at what's going on, and I will direct my PCs and PCSOs to the area to have a look at what's going on, and I will also talk to reactive PCs and reactive sergeants to make them aware so that they can be patrolling at night time, etc. So there's more people there to are aware.
Mr. Clement.
Thank you. I thought it would be appropriate just to mention here something which has impacted me in relation to policing recently, and it relates to something I mentioned earlier about the notice board on the Riverside Bridge. So in the run-up to the elections, I tweeted the candidates for election, trying to get a pre-election commitment from them to get that notice board fixed. The Liberal Democrats, in a very illiberal and undemocratic manner, described what I'd done there with a handful of tweets as harassment. And I decided, as a result of that description, not to take any further part in that election. I would have liked to have taken an active part in promoting our local democracy as I do, but I thought the safe thing to do was to stop. And I didn't do any tweets for about 2 weeks, and I didn't take any part in the election. And that's because I didn't have the confidence in our local policing and justice system. And that's not because of anything that's happened locally, but it's because of what I see around the country in terms of police activity against journalists and against campaigners and people who take part in our democratic system. For example, in Kent, we've seen police action where the police have said they've taken action against a journalist just because they've mentioned a councillor a number of times, and they've said that therefore that's harassment. And we've also seen examples of people trying to enter the debate on how we treat young people with gender dysphoria. And if people don't enter that debate in exactly the right way, in a political correct manner, using the correct words, then they can face police action. So what I'd like to see, particularly as we've got the Police and Crime Commissioner here, is just a short paragraph in the Police and Crime Plan to say that one of the things that you're asking our police to do is to support our democratic system and enable people to enter debate about how we run our society. And I think it would also be useful to have that as a priority locally, so that we sort of pursue this change both at the Commissioner's level and from the ground up. But I think this is something, a national issue with our policing that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
For me, where I don't reply to you, so
Okay. Elisa, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, no, I was just, it was basically just about the point that Kevin raised earlier about the boy races and the fact that I have a resident who's in contact with me constantly, and some of the stuff has happened in the last month about videos that she takes of these people gathering pretty much outside her house. She has told me that she's in contact with the police as well, so I was just making sure that you guys knew, and if you don't know, I will get back to her and make sure that we're all on the same page. But she lives near where the Ship Pub is, and that's where a lot of those gatherings happen.
Okay.
And I can hear them and see them because they pass by my window at night as well. So they're definitely feel that.
Yeah, no, I will have a look into that, but I'm not aware of anybody having come forward with that.
Okay, thank you. So is there any more residents that want a word? I've got 2 councillors that want to say anything, but I just want residents to have a word as well. Claire.
Can I say something really quickly? I mean, it was an odd request from Richard. You know, I've been a councillor, I've been a resident, I've been involved in this a lot of the time. And I remember talking to Jason Rand about how harassed I felt in terms of 24/7 expectations and being pursued by those people on Twitter. And it isn't something that's easy. So all I'm saying is actually in terms of what Richard is saying, you know, if he does his job, that's fine. There are times when some people might perceive it as being a little bit difficult in terms of learning to, I would say, be considered public property. They're not public property. I don't believe this is something that police need to ever get involved in. You know, if it becomes an issue, there are things, ways of dealing with it either way. There's a code of conduct for councillors. There's also police action for that. But I just have to say that from 2007 onwards, it took me some considerable time to get used to being the focus of one person's attention. It didn't do me very good. I now completely ignore him, or I take the mickey out of him. You know, but nobody has a right to do that to other people, including candidate selection.
Okay, any more? No, not from the floor? Okay then, so I've got Councillor Manning.
Yeah, obviously just need to kind of respond to Richard's point, but I think I've actually made the point before that for anyone who knows some of the history of local politics, when you find myself and Claire agreeing on something, it is rather unusual and that should be taken more seriously on that basis. Just to clarify to people in the room what actually happened in terms of the issue that Richard referred to is a particular one of our candidates in the elections. That's just a candidate. They are a resident at that point. They are not, as Claire says, they are not public property. They're not elected. Was not responding to Richard. Richard tweeted me asking why they were not responding, which obviously means they then see it. But you can't unsee when you at multiple people on Twitter. And he asked why, and I simply replied saying that candidate felt harassed by him. And I then, as a follow-up, I then made very clear that there was no intention of taking any legal action of any form against Richard, and he could be completely reassured about this. It's simply that, as Claire says, it is a lot to be a councillor, and we don't get paid a huge amount, and a lot of us always have other lives, other jobs, families, and other commitments. And I think if someone just tells you that the reason they're not responding to an individual resident who's not a constituent at that point because they feel harassed, maybe that person should just sort of take it on the chin and maybe consider their actions a little bit. And it's a shame because I think a lot of the work that Richard does is extremely valuable to local democracy, and he is sometimes attacked for it unfairly, but you can't conflate every single instance of that, which is what this was. It was just a simple case of someone feeling stressed and harassed, and they didn't reply. That was it.
Okay, sorry, Jason, did you want to answer?
Excellent, thank you very much. Thank you, and I'm always very grateful that Richard doesn't follow me around like my predecessor. Thank you very much, very grateful. Thank you for inviting me this evening, Councillor Bird. And it was great to meet with both you and Councillor Queen at your request recently to talk about the issues around Fen Road, which were considerable, and I'm really pleased and assured by the police response, and it's good to hear, Councillor Manning, that feedback is coming back from that. Clearly, as somebody that's been affiliated with Cambridge and Cambridge City most of my life, and I've quite been saying, my mum was born and raised here as well, so I've got a lot of relatives in and around this city. It is one of those, it's almost like an algorithm where this issue spikes up and it's dealt with, and it has been going on for a number of years. But I'm quite happy to take the comment that was made earlier on about perhaps taking this to the senior level in terms of facilitating a meeting with Councillor Herbert, Councillor Count for the County Council, and local councillors and stakeholders to see what can be done in terms of the longer term solution, especially around the road safety issues, especially with the bridge and the it's a considerable increase in footfall in the future. So I will take that away as an action from this meeting today. In terms of county lines that you picked up, yes, it is a concern. Are there things that keep me awake at night? That is one of them. It's not just here, it's across the length and breadth of the country. Dealers coming out of central London that are particularly nasty people, and they target the most vulnerable, and they cuckoo into that. And not only that, but the drug dealers are quite often under 16 years old that they're pushing out onto the streets as well. So they're as much in these circumstances a victim as the people that are clearly taking the drugs as well. The longer term, and I know Cambridgeshire here, they're doing some great work, both locally and across the eastern region through an organised crime unit, which link in across the whole region, and indeed national crime agencies as well. Partners working together to try and get ahead of this growing problem. And you have my absolute undertaking that where there is drug dealing going on, that we will ensure there are resources to deal with it. In terms of reporting it, what is absolutely evident is that most convictions come from intelligence that comes from the public and not the police. So when you hear the police pleading for the public to report suspicious activity, then do it. You can do it anonymously. As I've said, we've just spent a lot of money on our new website. You don't have to wait on 101 anymore. You can go directly on our website, report activity, and you can be assured, and I will tell you this now, you can be assured that that information is used. You might not hear back, and you might think, well, you know, what was the point? I get that a lot. What was the point of me informing the police? But the reality is they are putting those layers of intelligence, overlaying number plates, descriptions, building up the wider picture, building up the regional picture, building up the metropolitan picture to ensure that people further up the chain are convicted of these offences, as well as the local ones that they keep pulling out. In the longer term, it's evident also that drug taking is the biggest issue, not the drug dealing. While there is a market for drugs, there will always be a drug dealer. And the police will take them out, and new ones invariably will come in. And we see the sort of rise in violent crime across this country, a lot related to this type of aggressive drug dealing as well. So it's really incumbent of all of us to play our part, to ensure that the intelligence comes in, and allow the police to build up those pictures and bring these people to justice. But the longer term must be about preventing people from taking drugs in the first place. We've lost our way in terms of prevention. We have to get back into that preventative space. Because actually, if you cut off the market, you cut off the drug dealing. And that's where we need to be in the future. So again, working with partner agencies. Police can't do this on their own. They can just keep putting the fire out, the flames keep coming back up again. This is a partner agency approach. This is about longer term vision, about reducing the demand of drug taking, so therefore reducing the amount of drug dealers that we have. And of course we know that a lot of petty crime around our city and around our county is also fueled by the fact that people are looking for their next fix. They get involved in petty crime because it's drug related. So it has to be a priority and it will continue to be so. You have my absolute assurance. I'm not going to say anything else this evening because I'm not on the agenda to speak this evening. It's a pleasure not to be for a change. But the main emphasis of me being here this evening was to listen. To listen to you. There's been a highlighted issue that I do take seriously. It has hit my radar and I'm here to give you that assurance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. And yes, and we were very grateful to meet you and be able to have a discussion with you, and thank you for your help.
Having recently had occasion to use the website to report a matter, I found it easy to use, unlike many websites which I find fiendish. And I've been using computers since 1982. And also, yes, there wasn't a sort of an immediate razzmatazz, but there was a follow-up. And interestingly, the follow-up also included something else that was mentioned earlier about the Victim Support Unit. They made contact to check that I didn't need further support arising from the incident on that. And there has been other contact, which has been very helpful and very useful. So these things do work.
Indeed, Chair, if I may, I think I've made a comment, I think Richard actually filmed me when I said it at a former committee meeting, area committee that I came to, where I described our website as sort of so archaic. It sort of wasn't even 20th century, let alone 21st. So it's been a real pleasure not only to enhance our victims and witness service, because it's now an integrated service to which I commission, but also to ensure that we've got a proper website that makes it so much easier for people to make contact with their police. And do try the web chat as well, because the web chat that you can do is very effective as well.
Okay, Carl. Sorry, did you want to still talk?
No,
That's okay. So, is there any more questions for the police? Okay.
Thank you, guys. Again, probably to reiterate reiterate this board's comments. It's very pleasing to see literally improvements across all areas of incidence, so thank you very much for all your hard work. One issue that has been coming up with local residents in West Chesterton, which I think probably spills over from other areas, is particularly around dangerous driving, which I think there's been a perception of an increase. We've mentioned motorbikes, but I think also cars running a one-way street the wrong way, which is rather dangerous. And I think another theme that I think has probably been picked up by other members in this group is that where there's been targeted change, where a small number of individuals are normally causing the vast majority of the problems. So I guess my questions are, on the dangerous driving side, at the moment I can't see any sort of granularity on that in the incident levels, so I don't know if that's included in other crime. And also if it is something that the police can be sort of taking that intelligence-led approach to try and address going forward.
Yes. Absolutely. We can do. What we've had a problem with over time is that we have been told about erratic driving, dangerous driving, etc. We've been said, told it's a red car. When we've asked, have you got the registration? No. We obviously are scuppered by that. We need registration, we need a lot more information than just it's a red car that's doing it. If we have an index, we can start making inquiries, we can start an investigation. If we have the knowledge of what times of day it's happening more so, we can send officers to the area to be on the lookout for that, whether that be in marked police vehicles to actually stop them doing it, or unmarked to actually catch them at it and arrest them for that kind of driving. But yeah, if you get in touch with me, if you let me know which roads we're talking about here or the general area, then I can have a look at it. I can have a look at the number of incidents that we've had reported to us, the number of intelligence reports that have come into us regarding it all, and go from there. But it is something I'll look at.
Is there a clever way of noting car numbers? You can only guess them partially.
Even a partial index is something to start off with.
So how can one do it cleverly?
Cleverly? As in without knowing?
Well, no, I mean, do you get the letters? Is it better to get the letters, or is it better to remember the numbers?
It's better to remember it all, but if you can't do that, just get as much as you can. We have a way of filling in the blanks. Especially if you to say, if you give a part index, but you to tell me it was a red Hyundai. If you happen to know your car. Some people know their cars, some people can tell you straight away it was a Fiesta or it was a Porsche. Other people like...
I've got a red Hyundai. It wasn't me.
However, if you can't remember all the index, give us what you've got. If you know that it was a black car, whatever, give us as much as you can. At least then we have a starting point, because chances are that won't be the only time that that vehicle is doing that, and somebody else may give the other half of the index and make a car, and we just put them together, we know who it is, we've got the registered keeper for that vehicle.
Time and place helps.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any information you can give.
Okay, thank you very much. So we ought to be at the area now where we track the priorities for the North area. I see you've still got on the criminality in and around East Chesterton, the county line drug dealing, and to continue recognising the need of Avon Street and Darwin Drive. Well, we've just heard what you've said there. So I just want to ask members, page 25. Is it possible to still keep the, if people are happy with the East Chesterton one? Members? Yeah. Is that okay? Lovely. And what about the county line drug dealing?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. So now we need to make another priority, unless the residents can keep Aikman Street, but by your report, Tracy, you'd rather it gone, is that correct? Yes. You think it's okay? Okay, so otherwise we've got some more here on page 29. The summer and hot weather related antisocial behaviour in green and open spaces, domestic and alcohol related violence during the World Cup season. That'll be over soon, another week, isn't it?
Another 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Oh right, I was trying to
It's only
do a
just
bit
started.
quicker.
Can I just add some context to that?
Yes.
So the first thing I would ask is, with the county lines, what would you like us to tell you? And so if you perhaps consider that, what would you like us to report back on? Because I think for the last 2 committee meetings we've told you that we've executed a number of warrants. Mr Ablewhite's told you about some of the work that we're doing with partners around the causal factors of the dealing and how we're going to deal with it from that very kind of problem-solving sort of angle. And then actually recognising that that's one of the constabulary's identified priorities already. Is there perhaps something else as well when you're thinking of your third one? Do you want us to talk to you about how we've dealt with domestic abuse over the summer? Because we will see an increase. We will see an increase in domestic abuse across the World Cup time. So perhaps do you want a window into what that means? When we say it's a priority, do you want to know a bit more?
Yes. Yes, please. That'd be lovely. Yeah. And Councillor Todd Jones would like to.
Yeah, can I just ask Inspector Hodgson, in respect to what you just said, is it, without being too specific, is it possible that county line information can include areas which have a particular focus and work required in the city, or north of the city, obviously, as far as we're concerned? But I have in mind Avon Street and Darwin Drive, where a lot of the concerns have been the county lines issues have got a lot of relevance there, and maybe to some of the other issues you talked about in this meeting, perhaps Fen Road and other drug dealing issues in that area of East Chesterton. So I'm kind of asking just whether that aspect of county line in terms of the geographical focus, whether it's relevant to suggest some data or work that's been done in that way.
We can certainly tell you where we have a prosecution that's finished. We can tell you a bit more about what that involved if it's in this area. Anything else would be too sensitive to share with you until it's actually come to its conclusion. It might be of interest for you to know what we're doing, perhaps give some with anonymity around the victims, talk about what does dealing with county lines mean, because it's not just about the warrants. It will be looking at how we've dealt with some of the premises that they're using with Linda's team. It will be around some of the open spaces that we've worked in and the development of that intelligence, perhaps with a closed case. Where that may lead us, though, is me giving you a case study rather than you setting me a priority. But again, county lines, when we get the intelligence, we get the seed of the intelligence about a county line, we will develop it and we will see it as far as we can. So without you prioritising, that will happen. So again, it's depending on what you want back from us.
Okay. So, can you explain a bit more what you were saying about the domestic violence part of it?
Yeah, again, I think what's happening through the prioritisation process, we're giving you a window into what we're doing about something. And like I said, we're not going to not do it because you don't prioritise it. Domestic abuse will be a priority for us over the summer. We're going to do that in your neighbourhood anyway. So we could tell you a bit more about what that actually looks like, how many victims we helped, how many victims we took to court, the work of the Victims Hub. Again, a bit of a win, and again, it might look like a bit of a case study, but I think that will give you greater confidence in what we're doing. And it supports some of what we're saying to you when we're talking about we didn't get to that damaged sort of, street furniture, or we didn't do with, a motorcycle incident. And we keep telling you we're busy doing this. We can give you a little bit more information about that.
Okay. I know the time's getting on and we've got Network Rail here, but Councillor Price?
Just partly to cover that really, and I've said this here before, that I think the priorities that we set and areas the committee set and we set as North, there are some things that I think are an absolute given that are police priorities, and that us setting them as a priority here makes absolutely no difference, because it is already the sort of priority that you've just spoken about, and I just think we need to be conscious of that. And it's no good us telling you that, you know, we want you to prioritise, you know, drug dealing, violent crime, and the prevention of murder, because I suspect that's what you're doing anyway.
Okay, thank you.
That's just a quick one. I understand that the domestic abuse goes up when it moves. So, can you explain how you factor that? Is it as simple as that you monitor the England matches and pay more attention if we lose?
I think it's
when we lose,
I think it's a given that we'll monitor the England matches anyway. Not me personally, I couldn't be disinterested. We have specific staffing levels that we'll put in place in anticipation of the games being there, and we're also and that goes right through to the call handlers, etc. Because we know that we're taking more calls.
I encourage more people to watch rugby.
Okay, last bit on this, and then we'll set the priorities. So,
well, it's kind of also a query, given that a lot of comments have been made about the issue regarding heavy goods vehicles and the A14 works in the diversions onto King's Hedges Road, Histon Road and Victoria Road in terms of our specific area. Now, that is a very local issue, whether it should be a police party in terms of working with County Highways, Highways England and the joint partnership with the traffic police over the three counties, I don't know. So I'm kind of looking for advice on whether that in any way would be relevant as a local priority.
Given that the answer has been given elsewhere by one of your colleagues as to how to solve the problem, I would be professionally uncomfortable with deploying resources to look at that on the basis that we can fix the problem. Often with road traffic and specifically with speeding, the police answer is the least efficient, very, very, very expensive to you, and it takes away officers from those other things that we've spoken about. So I would say professional capacity would be no.
Thank you. So have we got any ideas then for priorities? Councillor Spark.
Yeah, so I mean, domestic abuse is something I expect the police to be working on anyway, and the World Cup will be over soon. I'd say the most important thing at the moment with the weather getting hotter is getting the bottom with get lots of aggro on open spaces this time of year, and that would be a good thing to have a police presence to address. I would also residents feel safe in their neighbourhoods.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so shall we have a vote then that the third priority would be summer and hot weather related antisocial behaviour in green and open spaces? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Jerry, it's a bit difficult on peripheral. I guess I just wanted to sort of revisit maybe my point, which is probably linked to the HGV, but this isn't just speeding, it is actually very dangerous driving in a couple of areas. It looks like we'll be picking up that point. Now, I guess it doesn't necessarily need to be a priority, but I would want to flag that I would want an update on how we can be targeting the very dangerous drivers in the community at the moment.
Sorry, I am new to this role. I'm looking at my inspector. I have a plan that's we follow, and it's the East Chesterton plan, the West Chesterton plan. I can put it on that, and it will become a priority. I will then be able to not only task my own officers with patrols, but I can also task response officers over the whole of the south to also patrol the area too. They'll go on to their briefing and they will do that. So, I mean, I can update you yourself if you'd like to. Absolutely willing to do that.
I think what would be perfect actually is some of the residents have been talking to. We are collecting data, logging it on the website, which has been appreciated. Trying to get you the intelligence on who's actually doing it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, just to get a meeting with them to give that reassurance.
Yeah, absolutely. Do that.
Lovely. So can I have a show of hands then? Well, we've really got to get on. Sorry.
Well, I haven't spoken at all at this time, and I really would like to say something. That by prioritising summer and hot weather related antisocial behaviour in green and open spaces, I would just like to emphasise that that means we're concentrating on the outdoors, and I want to emphasise that there would be no intention in doing that to say that we are in any way at all ignoring the violence that's going on behind closed doors and the criminal assault at home and other forms of domestic violence. No, I just want to applaud what's been said over here, and the issue about the football and that exacerbating the problem. But the fact is that when the football's gone, the problem doesn't go. So I want to emphasise that and applaud you for the work that you do in relation to this aspect.
Okay, I'm sorry I've got to rush you all, but like I say, I've got the update from Network Rail yet. Okay, so are we all happy with summer, hot weather, related antisocial behaviour in green and open spaces, which will cover domestic violence and related stuff? Can we have a show of hands, please? Yeah, is everyone happy?
Yes.
Okay, that's the third priority. Okay? Lovely. So, thank you very much to the police for coming. Paul, Jason, Tracy, nice to meet you, Tracy. Linda as well. Thank you all for coming. Where are the guys down there? Not high. Anyway, we're going to have a 10-minute break, and then we'll start on with Network Rail. All right? Hello everybody. Hello. Can we start again, please? Hello.
Take the seats for round 2. So good.
Okay. Hello everybody. Can we start again, please? Okay, if we can get together so Network Rail can do their presentation. We've got to be out of here by 9:30, so yeah. Okay. Thank you for coming, and I'll let you do your presentation, and then hopefully people will have questions to ask you, and you may be able to help them. Okay.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening. Thanks for inviting us here. We're grateful. We like to make use of opportunities like this just to interact with members of the public, get the consultation going on, and try to get feedback about what we're doing or whatever we've done. What we have here is what I tried to present before we actually did the installation work. So I think I was trying to put the date down somewhere here, if I can still remember. So we did this in about April? So the 16th of April commission, I think March was going to be when you had the last meeting, and we were going to come here. But because of the snow, we got snowed under and we couldn't get in here. So what I want to do is just talk about level crossings, about why we have level crossings and why we have them on our network. Our network is about years old. So we started having level crossings about 180 years ago. And because you need to have this, because life was a bit slower then, not a lot of vehicles, not a lot of cross carriages. So we had level crossing, people can cross the railway. In modern times, a good example is the HS1. The HS1 has no level crossing at all. So it's just a railway. So we don't have the issue of level crossing. But Network Rail, generally, we're legally bound to risk assess all our level crossings. So every now and then, we risk assess our level crossings in terms of safety. In the past 5 years or 4 years when we started this project, Fen Road level crossing was one of those that we reassessed, and we had to upgrade it. Just show you this video, which is an animation video, and it just shows what we did. I know probably some of you would have seen it, so you actually probably know more than what's in there, but it just shows what we did. So if you look at it, this is going into the dead end going that way, going into the lane that's going towards Cambridge. So that's where we put the new road traffic light in. So we had to do so, put some retention wall here to get it up level with the road. We tried to widen the road a bit here, and I'm trying to get feedback on that footpath over here as we go along. So if there's any feedback, I really appreciate that. On the other side is just for our equipment, so we fence that place up. And we've also had a footpath here so that it makes it safer for members of the public. That's one of our colleagues trying to open the distribution board. So obviously that's an anti-trespass guide. We don't want people trespassing onto the railway, so we have to put those on there. We're now going to the other side, to the Cambridge side of things. The footpath also comes down here where you can see what's going on. We've also had a retention wall on the other side of, I think that's Moss Road. Moss Bank, yes. It was snowing during that time, so we had to. We had to put in new LED lightings so that it's going to be good for our camera, so they can see better now. Obviously, these are our equipment that we put in on the railway side of things. Most members of the public might not be able to see that because it's within the network rail boundaries. Still things that has to do with network rail in terms of hollow bearers, where we pass our cables. It all has to do with cable management. And we had to modify the OLE wiring because of the new level crossing that we had in there. We had to raise it a bit and move it out of the way. We're looking towards the new station. That's Cambridge North Station. We're looking at on that side. And I think that's it. So generally this work, in this one I had a program about 5 level crossings that I had to do all around, which is why I had a map over there. So the last one I did was at Shepherd, and we've just upgraded Shepherd from a automatic half barrier to a CCTV level crossing also, which makes it safer for everybody. And it's been working for since May? Yeah, since May. That's when we commissioned the last one. So over here, generally, it's working well. So I would like to have feedback on how this is. One of the things that we're actually looking at over here is whether we should raise that footpath and have it a little bit raised, because at the moment it's actually level with the road. Even though the road is a bit widened, we're trying to see whether we should leave it that way and people should use it, if there's a feedback of it, or we should raise it and make it a dedicated pedestrian footpathway. So if there's a feedback that we get on how people are using it, we're going to see what we do next on that one. We've also installed Yodel alarms, so which tries to tell people when trains are coming. It's kind of an audible warning for people to know what's going on. But generally, level crossings, network rail, we're really hot on level crossings. We have to risk assess them because that's the interface with members of the public. We all know that trains can stop like vehicles, and when a driver is coming, he actually doesn't see far ahead, so he can't stop. And if there's anything on the level crossing, his only eyes are the signal. So we have to have a controlled level crossing, which is why we're taking away all the automatic half barriers. We're trying to, anyway, where they are appropriate, to take them out. So in terms of Fen Road, is there any question that you would like me to that you want to ask me, any feedback, and then we can take it from there.
But I'll start with one thing. We've had the level crossing knocked over now twice, the barriers. And I'm just wondering, when the station gets working really properly, because it's not yet, that's going to cause a problem because the barriers are down enough now. When it comes to working properly, the people are not going to be able to move from either side of the crossing. I'm just wondering if there's anything you could feedback on that.
Okay, so this is I think I've been here, I did a public consultation before I even did the installation, and that's one of the main concerns. So the increase in the number of trains, especially with the new station, has increased the number of trains that use the level crossing. So because it's a controlled crossing, somebody has to look at it and put the barriers down, make sure it's clear before the train passes. So the increase in the number of trains means that the barriers will be down more. So you're definitely right, as the more you use the station, the more it's going to be down. The level crossing will have no solution to that issue that you mentioned, because what we did was just renew the level crossing. However, there could be a new signalling solution to it, but that wouldn't be a cheap solution. There's a project called the Cambridge Area Signalling Project. It started now, but our project takes about 5 years, 6 years. It will come into fruition in about 5 years. If that comes into place, I think those are the things that we're going to be looking into, and to see how we can get the level crossing to reduce the barrier downtime while improving the signalling system. But it's not something that we can do now. It has to be a long-term project.
Okay. Any questions? Gentleman at the back there?
Yeah, just one question. And I can also, sorry, there's one question. I could also comment a little bit as well about the barrier downtimes, because there's been some development on that, which perhaps Bodie doesn't know about so much. And that is, the question is, why was it decided to use a full barrier rather than two barriers each side?
It's mainly a constructability issue. There's no, if you look at it as you view it from the pictures here, putting four barriers, what you're trying to say there, gets it more difficult because there's no space to put them in. So it's a constructability issue why we didn't use 4 barriers.
Shall I comment a bit on the barrier downside issue?
Yeah.
A group of us, including Councillor Bradnam, and myself, went to see after the last incident, actually, last barrier crossing, went to see the signallers, who were extremely helpful to us about how they're dealing with it. And we believe, and in fact I think it's pretty clear, that actually the situation has improved somewhat since then, in the last month or so. And the main reason for that, although not the only one, is that there are now an extra signal person on duty all the time, who basically, Cambridge was one area from Cambridge to Waterbeach, and now that's divided into 2. So effectively there's one signalman now on full time, who is basically dealing with Chesterton Crossing and to Waterbeach, which is basically Chesterton Level Crossing. And so that, I think, has made them quite a lot sharper in terms of how they respond, giving them time basically to deal with it much better. And so we think, it appears to be the case, that you no longer have the very long delays which you used to have, where you might be waiting for 4 or 5 trains. In recent experience, there seems to be a maximum of about 2. I think there's still quite a bit of room for improvement, because there's still quite a long delay for trains starting and stopping in Chesterton North Station, and that, I think, could still be improved by slippening up, and maybe the new signalling that Bodie is talking about will help to deal with that. They have also improved already to some extent as well, improved that delay by some changes where trains coming from the north and stopping in Cambridge North. When they were doing that before, they would come into Cambridge North on a green signal, which would mean that the barrier would already have to be down when they were leaving Waterbeach. Now, sometimes at least, they're coming in on a red signal, which means that until the train is ready to leave Cambridge North, the barrier can be open. So although it seems to be that you still stand about a 50% chance of the barrier being down now, the length of time that you have to wait seems to be considerably improved.
Oh, that's good news.
That's great.
Anybody
Yeah, thank you very
else?
much. Yeah.
Carol?
Yeah, I'd just like to speak in favour of, I'd like to just speak in favour of your initial recommendation, which is to hire the care of the side, so you've got a segregated system, because there are lots of families crossing there, so I think a good risk assessment safety outcome would be to hire that and to also segregate it, so they've got, because the cars are very fast going up and down there, so that would just give another element of safety.
Okay, so what we're going to do is just raise the curb. And
Just
then,
raise the curb and then maybe put a barrier there as well, so they're segregated. Oh, you can't do that, can you?
No.
Because, oh, okay. At least raise the curb.
We'll raise the curb, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you very much. You mean raising the curb? The whole project. Okay. So, because I did a project of about 5 level crossings, and when I'm doing this project, it was actually part of the resignaling project. I won't be able to give you the cost of 1 level crossing. I still won't be able to do it. I can come back to you anyway and then give you full cost of that. Talk to my commercial manager guy and say, can you tell me how this one costs and so on. What we do is that we have a fixed cost contract and we have all these things done into it. So if the contractors make a saving on 1 level crossing and they make a loss on the other level crossing, that's their loss and their gain to balance out. So actually it doesn't give me a true cost of how much 1 level crossing is. But I can work it out if I actually sit down with them and say, just for information, I would like to know what one costs. So I'm sorry I can't be that helpful, but I can come back to you.
Okay. Patrick?
Oh, hi there. As a person who was nearly knocked over, not on this level crossing, but on another one, Waterbeach, I really like what you were saying about the possibility of having a raised footpath. So I would really support what Carla is saying, and I do agree. And I guess my question would be, I see the pros. Are there any cons to raising the footpath? Because as soon as you said that, what went through my mind is, what's not to like, what's not to love about that?
Thank you very much. Very good question. So when we're doing this design, the road itself is a little bit narrow, and I think probably we know that road is a bit narrow. So while we had a chance to increase, to widen it, we just thought it would give an opportunity for drivers, if everybody is respectful of each other, to just have a little bit of leeway while crossing the road. So we thought, okay, let's leave it a bit this time around and see how it is. If it doesn't work, we'll just come back and raise the curb. So the only advantage is that when vehicles are coming, it gives a little bit of leeway for 2 vehicles to move at one time. The road is actually very narrow. It probably doesn't take 2 vehicles at one go.
But the cost implications are...
the cost implication to us is minimal, because actually it's one of the options that we have in place.
Great.
Okay, I've got this gentleman.
A thought about the south side footpath is that I suspect it's used by bicycles at the moment. And if you put a step in, that will leave the bicycles in the roadway, where the cars, which sometimes go rather fast, would be in conflict with the bicycles going in the same direction. So that might be a con. The other con is, am I right in thinking that the south side footpath is not continuous with the footpath on Fen Road?
I'm trying to configure south side in my head, so just...
The south side is the Cambridge side.
Oh, the Cambridge side.
Yeah, which is the one you're talking about putting a step in. The north side footpath does seem to be continuous across the crossing. But the south side, I suspect there's a gap because the roadway doesn't go in that.
Okay, so when it comes up, I'll try and get it.
Yeah, there we are.
Okay, yeah.
There you are. That's the south side on the left.
That left.
South side is left, yes.
So that's
the one you're talking about putting a step in.
Right.
Yes. What happens the other side of the crossing?
It ends somewhere.
It ends,
just there,
yes. So we're going to be encouraging people to walk across on the south side to a point where the footpath ends, and then they have to go onto the road.
To the other side.
That might be a problem.
Those are one of the considerations we were looking at too, because we were thinking that comes all the way here, so you can actually cross all the way here. But we also have a disadvantage here because that ends here. You have to cross to the other side.
It's not ideal either way.
No, either way.
And the point about the bicycles being in the way of the cars is also better than it was.
Okay, that's great.
But my impression also is that the downtime on the crossing is less than it has been.
To be fair, I'm actually really happy because last time I came here, and it was the last consultation, we had a big discussion about it. So I think after then, we met with the signallers and you're just talking about that now. So yeah, you're right. One of my projects also is dividing the panel B, which one is for the Cambridge North and one is for the other South Cambridge. So that's going on, and probably that's the one you're talking about. And if you went to the signal box, did you see a separate CCTV desk? Maybe it wasn't there by the time you went there. So there's another CCTV desk where you now have a dedicated person looking at CCTVs. So yeah, there's increasing number of stars in the signal box now. So that's actually very good, so that's great. That's good feedback, which I'll tell the signalers.
Gentleman at the back.
I just wanted to make the same point about the continuity of the footpaths, basically, because I think Network Rail have done a pretty good job within a restricted area of trying to make that crossing a lot safer for pedestrians and indeed cyclists before. But pedestrians still have to cross the road somewhere around the crossing, because there is no continuous footpath either side. And really the county council need to address that and unfortunately probably spend a little bit of money to make a continuous footpath one side or the other, at least, if not both. And I would also add that there is a need for dropped curbs as well on the footpath, particularly on the far side, i.e. on the beyond the crossing area. Those curbs that, if you're using that footpath that is available, you're up and down curbs all the time. There's no drop footpath, so people with buggies or indeed wheelchairs would be in considerable difficulty and indeed still probably using the road, which is
okay.
And sorry, just finally, there is still discussions going on as well about having a bypass path from the far side to the towpath, so that pedestrians and indeed cyclists could go to the towpath rather than having to wait across it, which would again remove some of the traffic from some of the pedestrian traffic from crossing.
Okay, thank you. So, back to you, Ian. Would we be able to get a continuous path either side? Yeah. Your county council, I just wondering if you could put a word in and see if anything could be done.
Well, we've had, yeah, let's see why not.
Okay, that's great. Anybody else?
Can I just ask how many trains go through there? How much time do they have, the cars, to go through, you know, the time, how many trains go through this crossing in an hour or half an hour? There must be lots of trains going through. So how long are these barriers open for, closed for?
Okay. So when I started this project, we do what is called a census, a traffic census. So we know the number of trains that pass an hour, and not only that, we actually know the number of vehicles that cross it per hour. Since then, as I mentioned, that was like about 5 years ago. Since then, we've had a new station. Obviously, there's new development, and I know there's going to be further development around it. So I can go back now and give you the current numbers of train per hour. I'm not sure it's going to be able to help me out. And then I can come back and tell you that, but personally, I'm not sure about it now. I don't want to give you
There'll be more trains
Oh,
coming
yeah,
up
definitely. They are more.
working,
They are
yeah.
more. Yes, they are more.
I can't give you the number of trains, but when I surveyed the crossing back in December, within the course of an hour in the morning, I think it was between 7 and 8, the barriers were down for a total of, I think, 45 minutes. I gather it has improved significantly, and when I get another boring morning, I should do another count.
If you do one, please let me know. Thanks.
That's 500 quid a day.
Thanks for the presentation. I mean, you gave a little bit of history, it's interesting. My sort of, what I know about level crossings is next to nothing, but I guess I sort of think of them as being, in the past, all technology. Yes. Is this idea of vehicles or cars crossing over where railway lines cross. You can imagine it being maybe in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of America or somewhere, but not in a busy and getting busier area next to a new train station. So when do you decide to build a bridge? Is it a number of cars passing over the crossing, or a number of deaths and serious injuries? Because the bridge is obviously a lot more expensive, but clearly a bridge would be better, wouldn't it? Surely.
Very good question. So Network Rail, and I'll go back to Network Rail now. So Network Rail, first priority is to close level crossings. So we really want to close level crossings. And I was just talking about it some few minutes ago. When we started this project, our first priority was to see how we can close it. It might not necessarily be that we put a bridge over it because it has a hump already, and it might be difficult. We might actually get another road coming from the bypass, from the motorway, and see if it comes in from the other side. But you have to do a risk assessment, get everybody's buy-in, and then also the council, highway, and then everybody needs to work together to close the level crossing. And since we've just upgraded it, and as I said, level crossing are legally banned to actually do continuous risk assessment, I'm sure this is going to be risk assessed again, and then we're going to try and see whether actually it's best to close it. And if that comes to that point, we're going to be working with everybody to close it. So we definitely don't wait for somebody to pass away before we do anything. In fact, when that happens, we get fined, and the ORR comes down heavy on us.
I mean, just to underline my point really, it's about injury. Clearly, the barriers have been broken a couple of times. If the barrier is broken, so basically not in place, and then somebody walks, cycles, drives through the crossing because there's no barrier there, it's a clear and present danger, isn't it, going forward? If that's going to happen, it's happened twice already, it could happen again. And that's a worry to me, and I'm sure it's well the residents in that area.
So, Network Rail generally, because we take safety very serious, we have something called the wrong side failure, which we don't want to happen. So whenever anything fails, it fails on the side that it stops the train. So when there's no barrier, like you said then, and when those barriers were knocked down, the trains were not going to move. And if they move, we have to have somebody who comes there, who's like an emergency guy. He comes there and he flags the train by at slow pace. So even if it happens, nobody should pass away because of that kind of incident. However, having said that, we look into these kind of things, and as I said, we've closed about 1,000 level crossings since about in the past 5 years, because that's our priority to do. But it's really difficult to do. We need to work with the council of the states and try and see what we can do. If this comes up again, we'll try and see. It's a continuous risk assessment. We actually have a dedicated level crossing manager for each level crossings, and they look at it every time. So if there's anybody around, I can actually introduce you to the dedicated level crossing manager here, and the discussion can continue and see what happens.
Okay, lovely. Okay, Mr. Bond, and then I've got that gentleman at the back again.
I think you should resign yourself for a very long wait before you can close the level crossing. Given that the need for the upgrade of the A14 has been apparent for 25 years, even before it was actually opened as the A1M1 link, it was regarded and recognised to be inadequate, even before they built it. So, you know, these things don't happen. there is a solution, and the only solution is there needs to be an alternative route into Chesterton-Fen. But unfortunately, Chesterton-Fen, as far as public authorities are concerned, seems to be an oubliette that nobody really wants to know about. And so you're stuck with the fact that you've got a growing community on the far side of the level crossing from here, which needs to get in and out on a regular basis because they're hardworking and mostly very honest people, but without the alternative. And there is a suggestion that's been made, which is a sensible one, and it could have been incorporated with the current upgrade of the A14, but unfortunately those pleas fell on deaf ears, and I'm afraid they're going to continue to fall on deaf ears for a long time, which is a great pity, because the people on Chesterton-Fen deserve better.
Yep. Here, here. Do you next one?
Yes, my name is Ian Litterick. Just thought that on the issue of the danger to people when the crossing is broken, two things about that. One is, I think it's less likely to happen now because there's less frustration and therefore people are less likely to speed across the crossing rather than having to wait 20 minutes. But it was also interesting in our discussion with the signallers that actually the cost of the repairs to the barrier last time it was happened, I think the actual physical repairs to the barrier cost about £16,000, but the real cost to Network Rail was in the penalties that they had to pay for slow running of trains over the crossing whilst that work was carrying out, which was about £60,000. So they do take, as somebody says, safety very seriously, and that crossing, the issue with the delays on the crossing, there seems to be no question about extra safety concerns at all. That's not the problem.
Okay, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Ian.
Oh, there's the lady next to you, and then I've got Ruth here. Do you want to go first?
I just want to put together two very obvious points, and that is we're talking continually about the element of, criminal activity down Penn Road, but actually I think, is it not coincidental, or maybe it isn't, that the rise in that level of frustration and antisocial behaviour has come at a time when people are stuck behind. I mean, it's a very large community. People get really, it's almost like, a kind of claustrophobia. That's the only way out. What happens if somebody has a heart attack? What happens if somebody's in labour? There's a massive amount of people in ordinary human lives who need to get across that crossing. And of course there are hot-headed people and they've got to get work. I spoke to somebody, in fact, in the last meeting, who said it took longer for him to get back. He worked somewhere in Suffolk, West Suffolk. From West Suffolk to the science park took him quicker than from the science park to his home, which is just the other side of the railway line, because he sometimes had to wait so long. And that is deeply frustrating, and it's an obvious point. But in terms of money and planning, I would have thought that all the money that we have to spend on police to cope with their antisocial behaviour, maybe some of that should be put into thinking again about having a way into the behind the railway line.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I just wanted to offer the thought that to give people the far side of the railway line an alternative that depended on the A14 was perhaps cruel and not a working solution.
Okay.
It would be a long
If-
beside him.
Do you want to use your desk mic?
Have Network Rail got the potential move of the sewage works on their radar anywhere at any level? Because that is obviously something that will impact that area and may potentially finance an access road or part finance an access road.
Well, From a project delivery point of view, as project manager, no. It might have been at a higher level.
I think it would be worth it if you can kick that up to check someone in your more senior management is aware that potential change is going to happen. I'll send you some details. Long way off. Very fun.
Okay. Okay, take about a couple more questions, then we'll have to finish the meeting, I'm
I
afraid.
was going to say that the whole of Cambridge Northern Region is predicated on having a railway station there. So I can't imagine that very senior management are not fully aware of Cambridge Northern Print East. And whilst, you know, it would be good to move it, it is firstly dependent on £193 million coming from government. And secondly, at the very earliest, is going to be in terms of building out something or moving something like that, 5 to 10 years.
Better than never.
Okay.
15.
Okay, there's...
Yeah, I think we'll 15 to 20. But quite to live in the real. Can I just I have a friend of mine who's partially blind. He goes down the station every day. It takes him 10 minutes to walk down Philadelphia Road. And he will also walk back and forth down past the guided bus road. And he's so happy to do it back and forth with no complaints. So there is a way of walking down there. And I think people could start walking as well.
Okay, last question then for the gentleman down there, and then I'm afraid we'll have to close.
Yeah.
Okay, is that
Before I go, I just want to thank everybody. During the construction, we had loads of support. I think the police actually supported us too, because while we were doing the construction, we had loads of things there. We had staff walking around there. So I think we actually contacted the police to just pass around for us, and they did once in a while. So I want to say thank you. And I want to thank all the neighbours too, really helpful. We were actually worried about this area, and actually it turned out to be one of our best areas that we walked in every way that we walk in. So I just want to say thank you to everybody.
okay? Thank you very much for coming. So can I thank everybody for coming tonight, and thank you to all speakers, the police and everybody. Thank you.